Welcome, one and all, to week 11, even past the first of the double digits now. We're deep, and I mean deep, into the fantasy football season as your playoffs approach. This is Stats versus Film, the flagship show where we take you and look at exactly what happened on the field, on the game tape, and combine that with the stats, the underlying metrics, and yes, of course, the spreadsheets, in the hope of giving you a winning lineup here to move forward and progress throughout the fantasy football season.
Got plenty of rookies starting to emerge, and then also just looking at all the contenders as we kind of pivot away from solely being fantasy football focused and then kind of play NFL playoff predictors on the channel as well.
Before we go any further, it is Veterans Day. Shout out to all of you who watch,
Hell yeah,
who support us, who put the country on their back. Let's put it that way. Thank you for the veterans. As we go through this, as you know, we start with the primetime games, Sunday, Monday Night Football, and then we'll hit on some headline teams. And like Hayden said, that'll be a lot of rookie focus because it is that time of the calendar. Let's kick things off, though, with the unforgettable Monday Night Football game between the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll start with the Packers here. Hayden, their opponents are averaging 13 points in the 3 losses that the Packers have this season. To me, that speaks to their inability to get the offense rolling. Like, even in wins this season, it was trending towards bad performances in the first half, but second half or fourth quarters changed it. And now, like, they don't have a Tucker Kraft yards after catch explosive play to jumpstart anything, or a Jaden Reed yak explosive on top of it. So they are really begging for someone to step up, and it just feels like it's pulling on strings at this moment.
Just the way their offense is set up, they're going to have some dry spells because they're really good throwing the ball downfield, but those are also very volatile. So when those aren't connecting, then all of a sudden the rest of the offense can kind of feel stuck in the mud. I think versus expectations and hopes for the Packers, the offensive line has underwhelmed. They've had a lot of injuries. They added, like, Aaron Banks, for example, gave him a lot of money, and it's not been like maybe playing up to that standard. So the Josh Jacobs carries, they've been efficient because Josh Jacobs makes a couple guys miss and could fall forward, but they're not leading to very many explosives. And right now they're one of 5 teams on early downs. Their running backs are being hit less than 1 yard down the field. So there's only one of 5 offenses across the league. The Packers are one of them. So that's really hurting. I think the last one you said, the yards after the catch threat in the offense, you always have had to have that guy. That's been Jaden Reed at times. That's definitely been Tucker Kraft this year. Well, neither of those guys were available. Same thing with Matthew Golden too. So at that point, you're throwing to guys that really don't have that much yak ability. And by the end of the game, the 3 wide receiver sets was pretty ugly. So they really need Jaden Reed or Matthew Golden back in this offense to break out, because you're not going to get that from the tight ends.
I said it last week that losing Tucker Kraft, to me, takes them out of being a Super Bowl contender. And I think you really felt it on Monday Night Football. It's also a team that, heading into the season, we honestly zoomed out and asked, well, how can all these guys get the football when you have Josh Jacobs, Tucker Kraft, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Christian Watson at some point coming back, so on and so forth. And now it feels like they have none of them on the field, So, and they still love a wide receiver rotation despite all of that. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of Packers fans being upset at Matt LaFleur, who I think, has some really nice design plays and schematic elements to his offense, but he, let's say, lacks a spine when it comes to 4th down plays and go for it situations. And then he just wants to rely on, like we said, a rotation in the pass versus, really forcing his best players onto the field. And then there's other elements I think of it too, as Jordan Love just doesn't want to see a play die and just retreats because his arm can make up for it. But when you don't have the positive players on the opposite end, sometimes your arm can't make up for it.
Also feels like LaFleur is playing too much to the textbook of how you're supposed to run an offense. And I feel like he's just not adjusting for the lack of offensive lines. Like that last play, that was into a light box, but Jalen Carter gets absolutely smoked by the guard who was one-on-one there. And that's just not having a good plan. It was also a very predictable thing. They obviously had the defensive line calling out the inside zone run just because it's shotgun and Josh Jacobs going to be running to the other side. Very predictable stuff. And their offensive line just not good enough to do that against the Eagles. And then the other thing I just wanted to bring attention to is whatever we're calling that field goal attempt. And they have an injured kicker out there, and they just keep trotting him out there, even though he has no chance. So there's just been some really questionable things right now. I think that the Packers will be fine once they get the yak guys back in the offense, but right
But not
now
this
they're
year?
not well, I think they're going to be able to compete. They really need Matthew Golden or Jaden Reed to come back in this offense, but not
But
versus
really,
like
what
the
has
top
Matthew
teams.
Golden done to like take them over the top? And
Yeah.
to me, Jaden Reed's like coming off a massive foot injury. I really think they're donezo this season.
Yeah, they would be the very last of like my potential contenders list at this point. The offensive line is just not good enough to make up for like the wide receiver rotation they're talking about.
The first stat of the show is a kicker stat from the great Justice Mosqueda. Brandon McManus is 3 for 9 outside of the red zone in kicks this season.
He's telling the broadcast booth that he's not healthy, and then LaFleur's like, I don't speak to kickers. You're like, maybe you should speak to the one that's injured.
In a league that now routinely makes 45, 55, 60-yard field goals, when you have someone who's 3 for 9 outside the red zone this year, that's terrible. To go back to the Tucker Kraft replacement, I thought they might split the tight end position in half and, have Luke Musgrave out there in the receiving aspect. And then I think it was like John Fitzpatrick, I'm making up names, was someone like that as a blocking type. Luke Musgrave did play 52 of 68 snaps, but that ended in 3 catches for 23 yards. And again, they're just totally different body types. Tucker Kraft, stockier, more explosive after the catch. Luke Musgrave, lankier, more of a vertical route type guy. And so, again, we just do not have that underneath element here to turn a 4-yard catch into a 44-yard catch here.
Last 2 notes for me. Romeo Doubs leaves with that chest injury. We don't know the extent of it. I think Matthew Golden's going to be able to play this next game here. And then Josh Jacobs, the 5 games since the bye week, he's averaging 19.4 half PPR points. So you can kind of nitpick the offense as much as we want. He is the guy that they're reliant on. And inside the red zone, he is an absolute hammer. So he's as good as it gets right now.
Is Christian Watson in flex consideration moving forward?
I mean, if Golden and Dobbs are out, yes. But I mean, he's the wide receiver 67 in usage right now this month. So he's going to have some spike weeks, but he's just not going to be someone that they're going to manufacture touches coming off the ACL injury. So that's why I'm maybe a little bit more optimistic on could a Dontavian Wicks, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed kind of pop in here. But all that depends on if Romeo Doubs is actually hurt.
Let's talk about the winning team. Now the 7-2 Philadelphia Eagles. Does it feel like that? Let's discuss it. All right. This is from another great Shio Kapadia. Quote, based on offensive success rate, that Monday Night Football game was the Eagles' worst regular season performance of the Sirianni Jalen Hurts era, a 6th percentile offensive performance. The only game that was worse was the playoff loss to the Bucs after the 2023 season, which is fitting because at times I've compared this offense and the lack of answers that they have to that 2023 season.
The Eagles need to stop running the ball, like at the rate that they do. They should be a pass first team. The offensive line just throughout the entire season has been too middle of the pack. And then the downfield stuff to Devontae Smith has been too good. That's where I would just kind of lean into the volatility with that. Did not have Cam Jurgens for this one. You're going up against the Packers. None of that's fun stuff. So not like overly surprised by the results. Still get a win out of the situation. But I mean, I just think that AJ Brown has been secondary to Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith has been their best skill guy by far this entire season. And I would just like completely lean into throwing downfield shots to Devontae Smith. Got a couple of play action shots to him, like the big quarters beater was one of them. But that's kind of where I would lean into if I was the Philadelphia Eagles. Didn't really see like too many changes on offense here, but I think a lot of that just because you're scared of Micah Parsons and your right tackle was in and out of the lineup.
A few different layers there. All right. First, about the rushing attack. Jared Smola pointed this out. Saquon Barkley this season has 8 yards per carry versus the New York Giants when they played in their 2 games, and then 3 yards per carry versus everyone else. It's just still not hitting right. He did have one explosive play in the passing game last night, but that's kind of it. Now, the lack of rushing success then puts them in these 3rd and medium, 3rd and long situations. Like last night to end drives to open the game, it was 3rd and 14, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15. And they had way too many surrender runs in those moments for my guy, David Nick Patullo, So you are paying $88 million or something to this wide receiver duo. Give them a chance in those situations. Put them on the same side of the field, stack the alignment, do something to it, or a jump ball situation. Give one of those 2 wide receivers a chance. And guess what? They did that in the second half, in the fourth quarter, a 3rd and 12 to Devontae Smith, and he gained 16 yards along the sideline. It's not, oh, this is too long for Jalen Hurts. This is too long for our offensive line. This is too long for our wide receivers. There is way too much money invested into that group for them to not even attempt that. I don't know if that's a Jalen Hurts thing, if it's an offensive line thing, if it's a play caller thing. It might be all of it. But give those dudes an opportunity.
I think they play very conservative football because they know their defense is so good. And I am on your side, though, where they should just go for it. Like, this is an offense that could be averaging 25, 30 points per game, just the way that they're calling plays right now. They'll never be able to hit that. They're just way too conservative right now. So hopefully Lane Johnson's actually healthy. I know he played like the final drive there, but that looked like a pretty bad injury to me. So hopefully he's ready to go, because the on-off splits without Lane Johnson are very severe. But you and I have kind of been ahead of this one on the Devontae Smith over A.J. Brown. Just tracking that. That's 6 out of the 8 games where Devontae Smith's been better than A.J. Brown over the last calendar year. It really hasn't even been close. And A.J. Brown, to me, nothing on tape. Like, he's made a couple plays, but like, he's not, I would not vote him into the Pro Bowl right now. Like, not even close. He would not even be in consideration for me.
No, there's nothing about his movement that's really dynamic this season.
Yeah.
And, you know, when he had successful games like against the Rams, it was just being a power forward and climbing the ladder versus smaller corners. Yeah. It's interesting. I really appreciate the show that I have with Faraz, and you probably do, about your waiver show with Jacob, because you and I talk so much about football. I mean, 8 shows a week.
Every day.
That at times it feels like our opinions are the same as everyone else's opinions out there. And that's not the case. So like when I talk with Faraz, and we just did this last week on the rest of season rankings, and I just flat out put Devontae Smith ahead of A.J. Brown, he was kind of taken aback by that. But again, like, if we look at this entire year, Devontae Smith is wide receiver 13 in points per game. A.J. Brown was all the way down at wide receiver 41. And it's not just this 10-week sample. As we have talked about, it goes back to, week 8 of last season on top of it. So it's just gotten to a point where the eye test matches it too. Devontae Smith is just a better football player in this moment than A.J. Brown is. And that could make for, I think, some interesting offseason conversations for that team too.
I think people are very scared of looking super foolish, and like, if you sit A.J. Brown or rank A.J. Brown too low and then he has that big game, you feel like an extra big idiot. But I think there's enough evidence here where we should acknowledge he can still go crazy, but the baseline result is not where it needs to be. Last note on Philadelphia, though, Jalen Phillips was the reason why they won that game. They traded a 3rd round pick for him. He was really good as a part-timer with the Dolphins. Game high 7 pressures, was nearly a full-time player for the Eagles, and he was the difference really for the Eagles holding the Packers to the 7 points that they scored. So that was actually a really quality move. They're going to get Nolan Smith up to speed here in the next couple weeks. They added a bunch of bodies in the secondary. So while the offense feels a little bit worse than it was last year, certainly, the defense, I think, is going to end up being in a pretty good spot down the stretch here.
Let's go back to Sunday Night Football then, and that's the Chargers and the Steelers. Let's first start with LA, because they won that one 25-10, and they're 7-3 on the season, despite all of the injuries that they've had on both sides of the ball. Daniel Popper, who's one of the best beat writers in the country, noted this, that despite having a 2.25 time to throw, Justin Herbert was pressured on 42.5% of his dropbacks. Now, he can overcome it. He has a strong arm. He's also, a heck of a runner with the football too. But that is just kind of an unlivable, unworkable situation moving forward. I understand the Steelers, have invested in the interior. We know their edge presence is too. But once you get to the playoffs, like, that is the type of thing that could really destroy an entire game for the Chargers to have a chance.
70% neutral pass rate, 2.2 seconds to throw the ball. A lot of it was actually just like quick screens to the perimeter. And like you said, the pressure rate was out of control. So there's just really no sustainable way to play football. The Chargers are asking so much from Justin Herbert right now. He's still making a ton of decisions. It's been really nice to see Quentin Johnson made a couple guys miss underneath, and then Lad McConkey and a couple slot wins over the middle. But man, like, no Joe Alt, this team is really, really going to be hurting down the stretch. So just shout out to Lad McConkey and Justin Herbert for kind of holding on there. And then hopefully that we're going to get Arondé Gadsden back for the full game. It sounds like he has like just a big bruise on his leg, and it's not like something ligament related. So hopefully he's able to play this next time around. But I think this is the world that they're just going to live in. Like, their offensive line they can't run the ball and they can't pass protect. So everything's going to be underneath. And Keenan Allen's like not even playing all the snaps right now. So I think Ladd McConkey is just going to continue to be the borderline top 12 fantasy wide receiver that he's been for the last month.
He's now the wide receiver 8 in points per game since week 5. So that's a large sample here. That also makes him the wide receiver 21 on the season. Now, he was drafted earlier than wide receiver 21. But let's keep in mind that points per game average is destroyed because of what happened in weeks 2, 3, and 4. It kind of seems likely at this point that was just, the bad pocket of the season for a wide receiver, which, by the way, happens to all about 4 wide receivers in fantasy football, that they just have a bad pocket and a bad stretch of time. So, Ladd McConkey's talent has not dipped at all. Obviously, during that stretch, it was rough because Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson were totally outscoring him. But Ladd is still Ladd, and they are going to need him in order to make the playoffs and then have any chance of winning the playoffs.
In terms of plays per game, they're at the top of the league right now just because they're not running the ball and they throw the ball underneath repeatedly. And that's just how you can stay on the field for longer drives. So there's a big PPR scam element here. Just wanted to keep reiterating. Keenan Allen's just like, he's playing half the snaps at this point.
Yep.
So Keenan Allen's going to be very difficult for him to get into the lines. I liked it in this matchup. It's still only ranked him as like my wide receiver 28. So in tougher matchups, he's going to be on the sit list. And then Quentin Johnson's like firmly back into the boom bust role as a dart throw wide receiver 3, but he's not going to have the downfield shots that we saw in the first couple weeks when Joe Alt was ready.
Just to go through all those snap counts. By the way, Anthony Reinard on Twitter and on his Substack has awesome snap count charts that look very much like Game Boy Color. Keenan Allen and Trey Harris played nearly the same amount of snaps.
Yep.
Trey Harris obviously checks in when they do triple tight end, or let's say fullback and running back snaps. And because then he's the isolated wide receiver out there. Quentin Johnson was all the way up to, I believe, like 93% of snaps in this game. And also wanted to bring up Kamani Vidal playing a boatload of snaps in this game, starting every single drive. And if you look back, Kamani Vidal has been the running back 8, then 33, then 7 and 44, and then the running back 8. So this is basically one of those situations where you have to start Kamani Vidal every single time. And if they can't run block, and if they're losing, like chasing games like they were against Indianapolis Colts, he might have a bad game. But if they're winning, if they're in neutral scripts, he's going to get the football. He's going to be in there all the time. And he might score as a top 10, which he has frequently 3 times, or top 12 running back.
Yep. He's the RB12 in usage this month, so he's a must start. It looks like Omarion Hampton's like starting to work out on the side of the field, not officially practicing. They have a bye week in week 12, and I'm hoping that we'll see Omarion Hampton from week 13 on. But that means one more week of Kamani Vidal for sure, and then we don't know. We're just hoping that it's Hampton in week 13.
When Hampton returns, I would wonder if they would immediately bestow him once again with 93% of the work or whatever he was getting before. We've all sent money to a friend or a group after dinner, bowling, maybe a birthday party, an event that you forgot to bring a gift to. And it can be difficult with other ones, but not Cash App. With Cash App, you can spend, save, and live your life knowing that your money is right where you left it, with advanced built-in security protections that you count on and help when you need it. Spend with peace of mind today and order a Cash App card in the app or at cash.app/card. For a limited time only, new Cash App customers can use our exclusive code to earn additional cash for real. Just download Cash App, use our exclusive referral code SECURE10 in your profile, send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That is Cash App. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit card issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Instant discounts provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Okay, let's talk about their opponent in this one, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I hate to say it, Steelers fans, but once again, they're like the most boring team to discuss of all these. They just are what they are in terms of Jalen Warren getting a bunch of the snaps, 14 carries, 70 yards. Then you have DK Metcalf. Does he take a short pass to the house or not? Does he get a red zone target and catch it or not? And then they run with their 3 tight ends. And that's what they do. And then when Aaron Rodgers, goes 16 of 31 with 2 interceptions on 161 yards, they just have zero chance.
Yeah, they're just super slow paced. They're very, very close to the bottom in plays per game. And Rodgers doing nothing out of structure. It's kind of first read and done with him at this point. Doesn't want to take hits. That's understandable to me. They play a bunch of 3 tight end sets, 2 tight end sets, and then it's either a prayer to DK Metcalf or a check to DK Metcalf. And that's pretty much the extent of the offense. That said, this week, we'll talk about in our rankings, they're projected for the most points of week 11 because they face the Bengals. So this is one where we kind of have to separate these conversations where, yeah, they have a chance to be the playoffs. We'll see about that. But they're not a real playoff team to me because the offense is just way, way, way too gimmicky at this point. I just don't see Rodgers kind of turning it on. He can still make a downfield throw, but aside from that, he's offering next to nothing as a NFL starter at this point.
Anthony has that Jaylen Warren left in the 4th quarter with about 13 minutes to go. Obviously, we'll wait on any news from there. That also led Kenny Gainwell to basically match him in snaps this game. And then even early, they got a handful of snaps, 4 snaps for Caleb Johnson, which included 2 carries, and then he didn't play the rest of the contest. So it was basically, and then, Kenny Gainwell, despite having a bunch of snaps, just 3 targets, 2 receptions, and 4 yards.
All comeback mode, like you said. Yeah. So we'll see about the Jaylen Warren stuff. They got Caleb every single week. They give Caleb 2 touches in the first quarter to keep him, active and engaged. But aside from that, we don't know. And I would guess it would just be more Kenny Gainwell than Caleb. But maybe if Jaylen Warren did miss, they would give Caleb some extra looks here.
We'll see if Jaylen Warren misses, because the last time that he did, obviously Kenny Gainwell went totally
crazy.
Yeah, went crazy. And like you said, they're projected from the most points, which shows you when terrible defenses are terrible, it doesn't necessarily matter how good the opposing offense really is. They're going to be projected for a lot.
And I just want to know, I got DK Metcalf wrong again in my rankings. I ranked him pretty high and he busted. So, whatever I say about DK Metcalf, he's the guy that has completely evaded me every single week. I've got it wrong.
Before we go anywhere else, we are still searching to hit 170,000 subscribers at some point in the not too distant future. Every single one of you that is watching this video at this very moment, if you could, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, that you are subscribed to this channel. It is totally free. If we'd helped you at all win any of these weeks, hit subscribe, leave a thumbs up on top of it. And by the way, I believe we're in over 20 states now in terms of underdog prediction markets. More and more added basically every single week. So a couple years ago, you could not play on the dog app. Now you can, especially in the great states of Florida and Oregon and Texas and California, Virginia, South Carolina, all these places. So use promo code The Show, click the link in the description down below. And if you play $5 your first time, I'll hand you $100 in bonus credits on top of it.
Good deal.
That is promo code The Show and the link in the description down below. All right, let's talk about some rookie running backs here. And let's go to the Houston Texans. I know everyone has been teased by Woody Marks in the past. He's had top 12 finish before. And whenever a rookie running back does that, we want to immediately put him into the starting lineup. I believe Woody Marks has arrived in this offense. Now, you all could watch that game. You could check the box score after and say, well, it's because he's the passing down back on the Houston Texans, and they were trailing against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Woody Marks played on the first series ahead of Nick Chubb when the score was 0-0. And in fact, he started the opening 7 drives of this game. 14 carries, 63 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 receptions, 18 yards. Woody Marks looks good. Woody Marks is evasive. Woody Marks is explosive. So to me, there is a mission for the Houston Texans, and we'll talk about this in the wide receiver room in a second, to get younger and quicker on all their skill players. And I believe from here on out, Hayden, Woody Marks has a chance to be a top 24, if not higher scorer at the running back position rest of season.
16.3 expected points, played all those snaps, got both of the goal line opportunities in the game. And Nick Chubb he just hasn't offered enough to kind of go backwards from there. And like you said, this team is not expected to make the playoffs. They're going to make a playoff push, but they have to get more explosive on offense to have a chance there. And that means playing all of these rookies. I saw Jalen Noel on a big block for Woody Marks, one of the biggest blocks, him kind of scrapping inside there. Woody Marks is a very good athlete. I think that his decision-making is still pretty hit and miss. But he's explosive. And if he ever catches a lane, he is one of the guys that could absolutely rip it for explosives. And that's really like the baseline of the NFL offense and what we should be expecting from rookies at this point. So he can handle that. And there's just no reason to keep trotting Nick Chubb out there. So I agree with you. I think I would rank him as a top 24 guy rest of the season. And my next week's rankings, I don't know the matchup, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's like the RB 18 or something like that.
They face the Tennessee Titans. So maybe even higher than that, Hayden.
There we go.
Maybe even higher than that. Yeah, look, we have been teased by Woody Marks in the past. I believe there was one game where he played the entire second half of one. And again, that made us hope and want him to now be the starter here. This was just totally different usage. Again, it was the first series. It was 7 series. It was neutral. It was negative. And he even got a 3rd and 3 push pass in a gotta have it situation with less than 2 minutes to go in order to get a conversion and win the damn game. He's had explosive gains on top of it. And again, this extends to the wide receiver room now, where technically everyone is back healthy. So you have Nico Collins, you have Christian Kirk, you have everyone else. Previously, we had seen the top 3 wide receivers be Nico Collins and Christian Kirk and even Xavier Hutchinson. This past week, Jaden Higgins started 8 drives here, and that ended with 7 targets, 5 receptions, 42 yards, and a score. So we kind of hope that they would have their 2 big guys, downfield presences, crossing routes for this entire season. And it feels like it took until week 10 to get there, but we might have Jaden Higgins as a starting NFL wide receiver rest of way.
Yeah, I think he's going to be in 2 wide receiver sets with Nico Collins and then Jalen Noel, who I think keeps making enough plays for him to surpass Christian Kirk, but they have not stuck with that. And then Xavier Hutchinson gets in there and blocks a little bit too. So it's going to be a rotation between those 4 guys. Still, I would make Jaden Higgins the most likely to add fantasy points the rest of the way, but still at a pretty low level. They're getting a lot more passes to Dalton Schultz recently, and then obviously Nico Collins balled out. The one-handed 2-point conversion, I thought, went overlooked. That was a hell of a play, and then he was just a total menace as usual. So we should get CJ Stroud back from the concussion protocol in this one. Davis Mills held the line for us. So I would put Jaden Higgins as like kind of interesting, but I would still make him a dog to be like very fantasy relevant for the rest of the way.
Very fair. The wide receiver 2 through 4 is still a rotation versus Nico Collins being out there almost every single snap. Let's talk about the New England Patriots. There's a lot to discuss here. We went on and on about Trevion Henderson on the Sunday night recap show. I was able to go back and watch the game. And once again, I believe that the Patriots have a total inability and lack of skill to block from tackle to tight end. It is so bad. The goal line stuff, just blown blocks, getting held so they can't get to the second level while also holding defensive linemen on top of it. But the big thing I wanted to look at, both Ramondre Stevenson and Trevion Henderson have about 82 carries on the year. And in every single underlying metric other than one, Trevion Henderson is totally outproducing Ramondre Stevenson. That is notable to me. They have different skill sets, but again, where Ramondre's skill set is where the Patriots can't block, and how they have pulled the lever of outside runs to have any success in the ground game is where Trevion Henderson is at his best. And I think you could argue that the Patriots have the easiest running back schedule for the rest of the season. And so I am optimistic about Hendo from starting in week 9 all the way through week 17 here.
We just don't know about Ramondre and then Terrell Jennings. I just checked it right now. They're both working on the side of practices. We'll get more news down the stretch here, but Ramondre did not go on injured reserve, but it is a toe injury, and it's hard to be an NFL running back with a toe injury. So yeah, I mean, if it's just him out there and Dearness Johnson, he's going to go crazy. The key with him is the tosses to the perimeter and then just being faster than everybody else on the football field, in which he showcased twice. They're using that big fullback for a lead blocker. The offensive line between the tackles is not very good. And yeah, Trevion's had some warts on pass downs, but he's extremely fast. So I think that my baseline comp from at this point is like Raheem Mostert, who at points was really, really good in the NFL in a very particular role. And that's how I see the Patriots using Trevion. So if it's just him out there, there's no way he's not a top 16 guy, independent of matchups.
But I also think like he creates explosives, which is really good for us in fantasy football. Like he has long gains. Like he's 5.2 yards per carry versus Ramondre's 3.3. He's better after the contact by, 1.2. His first down to touchdown rate is almost 10% higher. He has 3 more runs of 10 plus yards, and his stuff rate is about 8 percentage points lower than Ramondre. So like, to me, they have to continue to lean into this, and it's the only way they're going to have any success. And then I would also like to see them continue to use Kyle Williams, albeit it was just, one downfield snap, but he should be like a third piece of this passing game when we look at wide receivers. Whereas, Mac Hollins is basically an every down, near full-time wide receiver for them. Then we know it's Stephon Diggs. But yeah, Kyle Williams kind of overtook the snaps of Pop Douglas, even if they played in different spots here.
Yeah, they're just going to roll with a rotation. Kayshawn didn't go to injured reserve, so he can be back this week too. So I think it's just going to be a big rotation out there. I think Kayshawn's too good at X receiver, and then Kyle Williams kind of learning underneath him. Mac Hollins is out there blocking. He was a big piece of that first Travion touchdown as well. So I don't think they're going to replace Mac Hollins. It was just refreshing to see Kyle Williams hit almost 22 miles per hour, because I believe I was looking back at my top 100 notes. No FBS player had more plays reaching 20 miles per hour last year than Kyle Williams. So the speed is evident there. They're working on the route running and beating press coverage and all that type of stuff, and like knowing the depths to cut on slant routes, for example. But it'll be a rotation. But I think collectively, the wide receivers for the Patriots are way better than I thought they were going to be going into this year. Like, they're all adding enough to make Drake May an MVP candidate.
Drake May ballin'. By the way, if you haven't, I tweeted it out, posted a video almost 2 years ago at this point with Colt McCoy sitting down with Drake May, breaking down his game. I think it was against Louisville or Syracuse, one of the two. And that's really fun to go back and look at and see the questions that he asked and how he's breaking down coverage and all this type of stuff. Yep. So go and watch that on the X machine. Okay, I know on the waiver show from last night, you and Jacob discussed the potential Denver Broncos situation we have brewing here. We have no news at this time of J.K. Dobbins being out, but it's certainly, there's some smoke that it's not very good at all. Like maybe week 16, week 17 at best here for J.K. Dobbins. So if he goes down, what are you expecting this backfield to look like, and how high might you rank RJ Harvey?
So RJ Harvey's been like the joker of the team, and he's been fairly efficient on his runs, even if it just comes at a less consistent level than J.K. Dobbins. His competition, it's like Tyler Bidet, who's just a third down pass guy. Jaleel McLaughlin's probably his best competition right now, but he's been inactive for a lot of the season. So I think they'll get Jaleel and RJ Harvey on early downs, and RJ Harvey will continue being a like legit feature of the pass game. And that's where he's been at his best. So I thought RJ Harvey is extremely explosive, too hit and miss of a runner to me to be like the lead guy, but they have no other choice right now. And I think that RJ Harvey, like Travion and stuff, they are, with injuries clearing out in front of them, there's really no excuses for these guys to not be top 20 fantasy running backs down the stretch. Like, these are second rounders with a lot of speed in completely fine offenses right now. So they really should be top 20 guys for as long as they start.
To me, they're really talented too. Like we have seen that in moments for both, and they are super explosive and they're good football players. So it would make sense for when their opportunity arises for them to be quality additions to these offenses. Yep. There's like a slight difference, I think, between the schedules. Like, I wanted to bring this up with Trevion Henderson. His running matchups, they face the Jets defense, then the Bengals defense, then the Giants defense, then the bye. Okay. Those are 3 amazing ones. For the Broncos, it's a little bit more difficult here. For Denver here, it's Kansas City, then the bye, then Washington, and then the Raiders, and then the Packers. So 2 really nice matchups there, and then 2 difficult ones, kind of sandwiching them on the outside. So I think RJ Harvey can do this. He carried the load in college, albeit at a lesser program, but he was drafted at this point. They brought in J.K. Dobbins after he was drafted. And we have seen him, to me, work between the tackles and outside the tackles and catch passes. I'm not sure how much they're going to rely on him in true pass pro situations. J.K. Dobbins was doing some of that, and Tyler Bidet comes in as a situational player in a lot of that. But RJ Harvey has goodwill in the bank on what he has done this season to, I think, have this opportunity immediately given to him, and then they'll see how it goes.
Yep. I think we see it the exact same way.
Also with their rookie stuff, I know Marvin Mims is injured at this point, but Pat Bryant is now the Broncos wide receiver 3, playing about 51% of the snaps, with Bo Nix playing how Bo Nix is playing at this moment, and Sean Payton calling games how Sean Payton is calling games. that will not lead to consistency when it comes to fantasy points. But I did just want to point that out, that again, here we are in week 10, week 11, and these rookies are finally getting going. Like, again, Jonathan Taylor didn't have massive blow-up games until the final parts of his rookie season. Jameer Gibbs took about halfway through the year. Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't until the final part. So this is just, again, we draft rookies. It's great when they immediately produce like Emeka Egbuka, but sometimes it can take a little bit of time too.
Last note for the Broncos, Ben Solak from ESPN was talking about how good the NFL is on their scripted drives, and he defined it as like the first 2 drives of the game. I checked the series conversion rate, which is like, did you score a touchdown or pick up a first down on your new set of downs? And the Broncos were dead last on the scripted plays across the NFL. Dead last. And like the top teams were like the Seahawks and the Colts and the Lions. So it's a really good metric to look at, and just shocking to see Sean Payton's offense and like the scripted plays have been really bad. They keep trying to throw the ball to Troy Franklin. It really doesn't work very well. Same thing with the Marvin Mims stuff, Evan Ingram as well. So they've got like a lot of like bad plays in the offense that they got to kind of sort out. And then Bo Nix also has to play better. So it's just got a really weird team for the Broncos. Like they're best when they're like just slinging the ball all willy-nilly in the fourth quarter, but they don't want to commit to it.
Imagine if they had an average defense. That would be a really bad season for them this year.
Yep,
really
be the Giants.
Season.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Giants. Brian Daboll fired, I think, for numerous reasons. We discussed the, not accepting the penalty on half-yard line and taking it to 24-10 instead of declining the penalty and keeping it at 20-10. There was also, the 4th time that Jackson Dart had been evaluated for concussion-like symptoms, and this time he has a concussion. He has a head injury. Ever since then, Hayden, Ian Rappaport and Peter Schrager and everyone mentions some names that could be in the future here for Joe Shane and the Maras to, hire as the next head coach. Some of those names: Steve Spagnuolo, Antonio Pierce, Lou Anarumo, Jeff Hafley. Do those names tell you anything where this direction might be going?
I think it's going to come down to 2 things. They want like a leader, and then they obviously need somebody that's going to be calling plays. Maybe like Mike Kafka is, if he wins enough games here and shows that he can be a leader, they would just stick with him just because he's been with Joe Shane and Mara for so long and seems like a good dude. There's also a chance they bring in like a more of a CEO type, and that Mike Kafka just stays as the offensive coordinator. There's a lot of moving parts there. Hafley does make sense. He's called plays on defense. By the way, their defensive coordinator is going to get fired. Maybe not in season, but by the next GM and head coach are not going to keep them. So they're going to need a defensive play caller. So maybe Hafley makes sense. Maybe Minter makes some sense. Ownership wise, they have connections to Notre Dame. So Marcus Freeman could come up from the ranks. I threw out Lane Kiffin as the most entertaining option if you want to link up Dart and Kiffin again. I think those are kind of like the primary ones. And then I would love to see Clint Kubiak too. Just that offense is absolutely dialed in right now. But I think this can go 14 different ways. So I don't think it'll be Spagnuolo or Pierce. Those just seem like too like obvious to throw out there because they played with the Giants, but really they got to come up with better names than that.
I will say Giants love local connections, and they love people that have experience in the Giants organization. So I wouldn't put it past them, So every name that was listed was a defensive mind. I always bring this up when we do our head coaching show, that so often these owners go from one end of the spectrum to the other. They go from a offensive mind to a defensive mind, or they go from someone that they, was a retread that they rehired from somewhere else that they gave a second or third or fourth chance to, or it's the young and up and coming play caller and coach that's never gotten the opportunity before. Very rarely do you find someone that's exactly the type, or it's someone, underspoken and soft-spoken versus outspoken.
Ding, ding, ding. That's what I think this is.
Yeah. So it's basically, that type didn't work for us. Let's go to the other type and target that this time. So just something to keep in mind. Also, Bobby Skinner posted this on Twitter. This is the 3rd time that John Mara has fired a head coach without the GM being fired. They fired Tom Coughlin after the 2015 season. They retained Jerry Reese. Then Reese and McAdoo were fired in 2017 together. They fired Pat Shurmur after 2019. They retained the big Dave Gettleman, and then Gettleman and Joe Judge were fired 2 years after that in 2021. They fired Brian Daboll in 2025, retained Joe Shane, and we'll see what happens from here. If the trend continues, 2 years from now, Joe Shane's getting fired with whatever new head coach they bring in.
I listened to Skinner with Jordan Ronan, and Ronan kept saying that Joe Shane's pretty much safe. He's going to be the GM for next year, and then that ownership views the positions totally different from one another, and that's why they're okay flipping this. And that last thing was Daboll was liked by his players, but he was kind of like too hot-heady just in general, and there was just too many fiascos going back to the defensive coordinator previously, Daniel Jones, the blue tent, for example. So I think they're going to go with somebody that's pretty even keel. So like when you're talking about opposites from one to the next, I think a more even keel leader. And then they have to figure out the offensive coordinator, which it might end up just being like, hey, Mike Kafka was here for Jackson Start's development. He was there for Patrick Mahomes' development, if you want to give him any credit there, and that he should just keep being the offensive coordinator. But I do think the guy that's mostly in charge right now is actually Joe Shane. And like, that's not just for a short term. I think that's going to be the case going into this next offseason.
And people do that for defensive coordinators, like Patrick Graham, Ejiro Evero, when new head coaches come in, they retain the DCs. I don't think we see it as often with OCs, but why can't it happen if they've done it with defensive coordinators on top of it? Okay, final question here about the Giants. Jackson Dart, since being named the starter, has been the quarterback 3 in points per game. This is the trade deadline for many, many people this week. Would you look to trade Jackson Dart rest of the season?
Not really. Like, I don't think anything's kind of changed. Maybe he'll run a little bit less. But Kafka was calling the plays. It wasn't Daboll this year. That's like something else that Ronan wanted to point out, is that Kafka has been the play caller the entire year. So I think the offense is about the same. He's been running pretty hot on all of like the out of structure stuff. So, but I would still rank him as a top 12 quarterback the rest of the season. I don't think he's going to play this week, or he's got 50-50 chance. I actually think it could be Jameis Winston instead of Russ to come back home, and they've just already been booing Russ. That maybe the next thing is it goes to Jameis as the backup. So I think Dart would be top 12 quarterback the rest of the way, but they got to make sure that when he's out of structure, he's sliding and getting out of bounds. You can still use him in QB power and stuff, but you just got to be smarter with, or Jackson Dart himself's got to be smarter on.
Right. The thing, he was sliding early in this game, and then he takes a massive hit. You know? It's Green Bay this week for them. Then it's at Detroit. Then it's at New England. Then the bye week. Then Washington, which is fine. And then Minnesota in week 16. So again, this Giant schedule does not get any easier.
My last note, this is a very good job. They have all the pillar positions they have under contract for cheap, like edge, left tackle, wide receiver, and quarterback. You get to have New York. It's a really, really clean job. And I think Jackson Dart's this last game, you mentioned it, the under center dig route stuff that he's doing now. Like, we didn't see that in college, and he's starting to check those boxes. Like, there's only so many more boxes he needs to check.
Final thing I wanted to bring up, because last week we were kind of stunned how the running back room looked after Cam Scatterboo went down. Tyrone Tracy played 67% of snaps, including 74% of the early downs. That means Devin Singletary played the final third, 33%, but then he owned almost all of the short yardage work.
Yep. Yeah, it's a really weird rotation that they're going with. That one makes the most sense to me. So I was Tyrone Tracy, 9.1 expected fantasy points. I mean, this week it's going to be a backup quarterback. You said it's the Packers.
Yep.
I mean, like, if you have to play one of these guys.
As you know, here on out, we go in alphabetical order. So that kicks things off here with the Arizona Cardinals. Jacoby Brissett, obviously at quarterback. Jacoby Brissett, 2 sack fumble 6s by the same pair of Knight to Lawrence. Jacoby Brissett working behind an offensive line that even when they try to put 6 offensive linemen on the field, they can't block an overload. He's trying to throw in the face of it, and the ball gets knocked out and returned to the opposite end zone. What notes do you have here for the Arizona Cardinals, and might it be on a second-year wide receiver?
Yeah, it's not stats versus film unless we go on a deep dive for Marvin Harrison. I thought what the Seahawks did was pretty impressive, and it showed the vulnerabilities of the Cardinals pass game. They pressed Marvin Harrison for most of the game, and Marvin Harrison came out with the touchdown, which was really good at more of like a jump fade from the goal line, and same thing with the 2-point conversion. So those were like 2 huge wins, awesome plays, put points on the board. Everything else was as bad as it gets. I mean, he was getting completely locked up. To me, it never felt like they were scared that he was going to beat him over the top. And at that point, you're kind of stuck. He's not really like elusive coming out of the breaks on like the comeback routes and stuff. We've talked about, he doesn't work back to the ball very well. He finally creates separation on a slant route. from the slot. By the way, they were actually moving inside the slot, so we can't say this is the coaching staff's fault anymore. And then just drops it. So it's kind of the same frustrations. He's better this year than he was as a rookie, but a lot of the same things that we were talking about on this rookie tape popped up here. And it was just like extra insulting because it was just like press man coverage on islands. They would move him into the slot. He would have good matchups there and still couldn't get anything going with him. So that was just the Cowboys versus the Seahawks. It was very evident that the secondary differences there was kind of explains the hot and cold profile from Marvin Harrison and Jacoby Brissett.
Now, to put that into fantasy terms, on the season, he's the wide receiver 27 in points per game. Since week 4, he's the wide receiver 19 in points per game. So, look, we got the Cowboys in week 9, and that was a good 19 points.
Yep.
And even this past week against Seattle, difficult defense, getting locked up, obviously incredibly bad game script. We might get incredibly bad game script moving forward. And what we have learned with Jacoby Brissett is even if he has 2 bad turnovers, even if he's facing disruption, he will stick his back foot in there and still rip these patterns from quarter 1 through quarter 4. And he's not that big of a scrambler versus what Kyler has been in the past. And he's not really turning down these throws either. So at least he gives a platform for a possibly struggling Marvin Harrison Jr. at times and keeps going back to him over and over and over again, which is great. And then for the obvious good player and best player on this offense in Trey McBride, it's to the absolute moon. Just continued to pepper him with passes that were catchable, continue to target him in the red zone with passes that are catchable. And again, this is a somewhat sturdy ground, I think, for us to have these guys as majorly fantasy relevant moving forward.
Yeah, all those are perfect notes. The Marvin Harrison stuff was more of just a film take with him. In fantasy, just the avenue is just perfect there. Walter Nolan with another injury here. The secondary's been going through injuries, and they can't run the ball right now. So Marvin Harrison's usage, it's like kind of the same split, both working in the favor of McBride and Harrison. No James Conner, Trey Benson means the ground game's not nearly as good. And then also Jacoby Brissett, he's play style is better for the pass catchers than Kyler. So both of those trends are working in favor, and that's not going to change for a long while. I refreshed my model across positions. Christian McCaffrey and Jamar Chase have more expected points this month, but Trey McBride is 3rd in fantasy, not at tight ends. All positions, aside from quarterbacks, in expected points based off his usage this month. Obviously, that's because of game script, Jacoby, but he, against the press man coverage looks, was running wide open, and he's just a much better player than Marvin Harrison is. I would take him straight up in points per game the rest of the way. And Trey McBride right now for the rest of the season, I would take him in the back end of the first round. He's offering that much more points over replacement than the rest of the group, but I don't think it's going to change because the Cardinals defense has kind of just stagnated.
Targets inside the 20-yard line for the entire season. Devontae Adams is number 1 with 21 targets, 9 catches, 8 touchdowns. Trey McBride is 2nd, 19 targets, 11 receptions, 6 touchdowns in the red zone. Remember when we were craving those? He gets them all the time now. Amon-Ra St. Brown 3rd, 17 targets, 13 receptions, 7 touchdowns. And then Christian McCaffrey is 4th with 16 targets inside the red zone and has 4 receiving touchdowns on those. The Marv stuff, just to finish it, if you're not separating, then you have to win in tight window, powerful stuff. He won some of them. He didn't win in all of them. And that also gives, great defensive back play like they did in the back corner of the end zone to punch it out. I just feel like when he has someone in his hip pocket, he's like 60% speed. But there is just no quickness, no acceleration, no explosiveness to his game, which is quite concerning.
Yeah, I think like his upside case now would look like Courtland Sutton, but Courtland Sutton was like dunking on people. And we'll see if he can kind of do that. I see the same thing. He just doesn't have that damn gear that I see with Rome Odunze, who's still like working through things as a young player. But I can see the flashes of like, whoa, that guy is absolutely flying. And with Marvin Harrison, he's got some nice releases and a couple of nice in-breaking routes. He's not a terrible football player, but just versus expectations, especially fantasy expectations, like there are reasons why the box scores have been what they are.
Let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons here. So Bijan Robinson still dominated in snaps, but he is just flat out losing carries inside the 10-yard line to Tyler Algier. Arthur Smith has, left some marks inside the building.
He did nothing wrong is what happened.
It does make sense though. I mean, Tyler Algier is a talented player and he needs touches. And that is an area for him to get said touches. Like he actually has 13 carries inside of the 10-yard line. The only players that have more, Dave Montgomery, Zach Charbonnet, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Javonte Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, and Jonathan Taylor. And then on those 13 carries inside of the 10-yard line, he has scored a touchdown on 4 of them.
Yeah, it was not even just the 2 goal line opportunities. Like the last drive of the game, it was a lot of Tyler Algier runs to finish it off too. So like that's like what they were trying to do at the very end of the game when things were really tight. So I see it the same way. Algier's just too good and he's just much bigger than Bijan Robinson. So getting that 1 yard, sometimes Algier looks a little bit better to the coaching staff. So he's just the only elite running back that does not have the goal line role to himself. Like all the other running backs do. And that makes him difficult to rank. Like Josh Jacobs.
That's like a difference between 18 points and 24 points.
Yeah, for sure. And like in my rankings, that's Bijan Robinson versus Josh Jacobs. You guys can talk about how much better Bijan is than Josh Jacobs. When the Packers are at the 2-yard line, I know who's scoring the damn touchdown. And with the Falcons, I don't know. So Bijan's going to have some huge games when he's used as a receiver, explosive plays, and he also will get a couple goal line carries. But Algier is also kind of rough. Algier is still like 30% rostered on Yahoo. That there's no reason that should be that low. He should be rostered in 100% of leagues.
And this won't be in the thorn in the side. We don't think of Bijan Robinson forever. This is Tyler Algier's contract season. So I would expect him to get a contract somewhere else.
Yes.
Also, Kyle Pitts is a full-time player now. He's playing like 80% of snaps. And since week 4, if we can look at that, week 4 through week 10, he is the wide receiver 19 in points per game at 8.3 per contest.
Yeah, my model saying that he is due for positive points. I also watched the game and saw him drop that crosser where I think he would still be running if he caught it. I went back and watched the Michael Penix and Darnell Mooney stuff just out of fascination. Darnell Mooney can't catch the ball this year after having a really good season. And the Michael Penix, it's the feet. I can't even process the angles that his feet go into when he's trying to deliver the football. It makes no geometric.
He sets up like Harold Fannin runs.
It 100%. And that is derogatory.
All right, let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens, who still contenders despite their losing record. And I would argue this wasn't even an awesome offensive performance from them. But guess what? Now that their defense is back in it, and while that might be dealing with an injury or two here, it gives them, to use this phrase again, a platform to be average and still win games. And I think they're figuring it out as they go along. Like we're still getting coach speak of, well, we need to get Keaton Mitchell a bit more involved. Mark Andrews, red zone weapon, so on and so forth. Anything you want to add here about the Ravens?
I thought Lamar wasn't fully healthy. Going back and watching him just in the ground game a little bit, they gave him like that running back carry, but for the most part wasn't like really fully striding out. And they didn't use him very often with his legs. And then he missed a couple of throws that he typically makes. So maybe that's just he ran exactly pure last year, and this year we're not getting the same results. Maybe it's just rust. But I didn't think it was the best Lamar Jackson game. And I think with Derrick Henry, I think this is like an 82% version of what we remember from Derrick Henry. And then at the margins, he's kind of slipped. I still think in like a full stride out scenario, Derrick Henry can absolutely still maul. But I think him like getting out to the edge and kind of turning the corner, I'm seeing maybe a little bit of weakness there. And I think that kind of explains why Keaton Mitchell is getting on the field a little bit. Because Keaton Mitchell and Derrick Henry, even though the sizes are way different, they get the same type of runs. Like it's the stretch runs to the perimeter. And I think that it's maybe pretty smart to see if Keaton Mitchell can kind of get to the edge a little bit faster, kind of as that change up.
If they can get through the Cleveland Browns on the road this week, they have a stretch of 4 games against defenses that they should just demolish. It is the Jets, then the Bengals, then the Steelers, then the Bengals again. So while, all your Ravens pieces have not been premier players, just keep them in mind and understand, as we talked about with the Steelers being projected for the most points this week, because and only because they are facing the Cincinnati Bengals defense. This Ravens team is about to get them 2 times in a 3-week span, along with the Jets and along with the Steelers team.
Yep. So I would still rank Derrick Henry as a borderline top 12 guy rest of the season. He's another guy that's due for positive regression.
Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. Terrible loss this past game. went back and watched it because that was the only game we didn't get eyeballs on Sunday. From quarters 1 through quarters 3, I was simply amazed at how many times Josh Allen had to get to like his third or fourth read in his progression, like go through full field stuff. No one was getting open. Nothing was schemed open on top of it. And when it was like back-to-back receptions of 20 and 16 yards to Dalton Kincaid. And then when he left with a hamstring issue, which by the way, he is now week to week 2, I understand the fourth quarter, they finally got it going and finally started passing. But that is terrifying because it has now been like numerous weeks that this passing game just has not felt right. And there's no one coming to save them with it.
No, they would get Dalton Kincaid on explosives because of mismatches where they would either bring in the third tight end or he'd just be the second tight end. They would just kind of navigate him where he was the schemed up guy down the field.
Coverage.
Yeah. And we're not going to get that anymore. So I don't know. I'm nervous about the Buffalo Bills offense. They lack a guy. Khalil Shakir cannot be your top guy in a pass game. They've pretty much given up on the Keon Coleman stuff. I understood why they didn't want to trade up like more than a first round pick for Jalen Waddle, but that really does handicap them for the playoff run down the road. So, and that's a Dolphins team that's really bad in the secondary with a lot of injuries. They're playing much better football right now. So like credit to the Dolphins for hanging in there, but that just shows you how bad their skill group is versus all the other top 10 contending teams that we're talking about.
It's the Bucs defense and the Houston Texans defense over the next 2 weeks here for the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, Jalen Waddle, every team should want to trade for Jalen Waddle, but it does speak to trying to trade inside of your own division for a wide receiver, how desperate you are for something new to be brought to this wide receiver room. And they just don't have it right now. They just don't have it right now. And especially with their run defense, we'll get to it, I guess, with the Dolphins here in a moment. But the run defense, it wasn't these edge runs for Devon Achane that carved him up. It was runs between the tackles. Like some of the tosses, obviously he would immediately cut north and get up the field, but it was inside runs. Inside runs against a Dolphins unit that has not been able to block anyone inside all season long, and the Bills couldn't handle it, period.
Yeah. I have a metric, neutral pass rate allowed on defense. So what our offense is choosing to do against you, and the Buffalo Bills dead last in neutral pass rate, which means teams are choosing to run on them at an outlier rate, and it works. No Ed Oliver. Daquan's just back at defensive tackle. They're losing depth at edge rusher right now. Their linebacker's been pretty light. They stick kind of out in two high shells. So Buffalo Bills skill group and run defense, those are the two things we have to pay attention to as we get closer to the playoffs.
All right, Carolina Panthers. I had this game against the Saints on Sunday. We discussed it for quite a long time. I know you went back and rewatched it. Anything else you want to add to that conversation?
There are just two like interceptions. One wasn't an interception, but it was a bad pass, I think negated by a penalty. And then the second one was just caught slipping. I'm not sure if you didn't see it. It was a cover 3 look through to the outside on a comeback route. He either like didn't see the guy that was supposed to be there or completely missed it. It was just kind of one of these games where his lack of like playmaking just kind of stands out, where you can just see across the league, other quarterbacks are making more plays than Bryce is. And that's just kind of where I'm at with him. So he has to, I think we're at the point now where Bryce, these next 2 months here, he's playing if he's going to be the starting quarterback for next season. I think that's kind of where I'm at. It's hard to find an upgrade over Bryce Young if you're not going to be picking the top 5. There's never that many free agent quarterbacks out there. But if he kind of plays to this level, I'm not sure if he's going to be the Panthers starter for next season.
The interception to me was nearly identical to the actually great throw that he made against the Miami Dolphins to Xavier Legette, where because Alontae Taylor was the corner who was like faking the blitz. And then on the snap, he obviously retreats into that zone area. Against the Dolphins, that person did blitz, and on contact, Bryce, layers it out there, lots of anticipation to that spot. And then this one, obviously the corner's just retreating into there. And Alontae Taylor is like their slot blitzer, their corner blitzer on top of everything. Yeah. I mean, look, I posted a big thing on Twitter. I talked about it in the show, so I won't rehash the entire thing. I think there's like a disconnect going on with Bryce Young and Dave Canales, where there's just like a lack of trust between it all. And it's understandable because early season turnovers likely make Dave Canales think that, hey, I can't call downfield shots anymore. Unfortunately, Statistically, Bryce was a really good downfield passer last year. And a lot of those were under center play action shots that, you whip around, you stick in the pocket, you put your foot in the dirt, and you throw these vertical. And a lot of them extra protection. They only called one of those in this game, and it was their most explosive play of 24 yards. So they have to get back to that in a way. And I don't know, I'm not at practice, obviously. I don't know if those just aren't practiced well, or if Bryce isn't comfortable with them, or if it's like, oh, it's 2 games out from, missing from a high ankle sprain. And he's just not comfortable, moving that much at this moment. But they have to get back to that in order for this offense to be expanded at all. Because even if you take the 20 plus yard stats and take it to the intermediate section, those passes just aren't even attempted. And there are, I think, 2 other occasions as well, where if he just held the ball for like a tick longer, then Jalen Coker was going to pop open in a couple of these windows. And I do think in his head, it's okay, I have to get the ball out in 2.7 seconds. And we've been winning by not turning the football over, by running the football, and by playing defense. And that's just who we are right now. And that all just caught up to them in this contest.
His best plays were the anticipation throws where he throws the ball really early to those big windows down the field. Like that's where he's been at his best. And there's flaws with that if you're kind of only living in that structure. And then he just hasn't been scrambling as much for whatever reason. He's probably just not getting this type of play designs where you would be scrambling more often. But yeah,
it is 2 weeks back from a high ankle. So I think that probably plays into the scrambling stuff too.
For sure. T-Mac real quick. One little split I'm keeping note of in the Rico Dowdle starts. Tedder McMillan's averaging 10 expected points. In the other games, it was up to 12. So small numbers there, but it does matter at the margins. He's only the wide receiver 40 and wide receiver 29 usage this month. I still think he's putting out good tape out there. Could be a little bit better. But for the most part, I think it's been a big hit for the Panthers. But like you keep mentioning, I don't see the top 24 wide receiver path there. He's just a wide receiver 3, and hopefully he scores a touchdown this week.
Yeah, to me, he can play like a top 24 wide receiver. Clearly, that doesn't mean he's going to score like a top 24 wide receiver.
Yep.
Yeah. Quarterback has to play better. The offense has to play better. They get the Atlanta Falcons this week. I would not be surprised if Jalen Coker plays in 2 wide receiver sets moving forward.
That was even my last question to you. Enough with the league stuff. It's got to be Coker.
He literally is just not getting open, period. This episode is brought to you by Square, because your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. And by that, I mean, when you're walking at the end of your street, maybe it's a Saturday morning, you just completed a couple chores, and boom, you smell that cinnamon roll from the bakery, the patisserie that you're just craving, or your wife stopping home at the end of a work day gets that maple latte that she's been wanting all day long. Heck, it's football season, football weather right now. The place you go to for your favorite wings, or with a buddy that you're both grown up in your mid-30s and have kids, and you just want to get out of the house for an hour and grab a beer or 2. That's what the neighborhood is all about. I mean, money spent in the neighborhood stays in the neighborhood. And when we show up as a community, it can be big business for local business owners. You can go to square.com/the show to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy that you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Let's talk about a wide receiver who can get open. And let's go to the Chicago Bears. It might be here. It might be Luka Burton. And if it's not, I think it should be. Look, DJ Moore is playing more snaps. Olamide Zaccheaus is playing about the same amount of snaps. But Luther Burden is an ISO route winner now on the outside. Every time he is given an opportunity on the field this season, he has made good on it. And it's not, inconsistency in his game. It's not, we're just going to manufacture a touch for him and he's going to run after the catch. To me, he is like routing up people now. He has 18 targets on the season, 16 receptions, 222 yards, nearly 14 yards per reception. And yeah, I mean, when they had to have it in a crucial situation, they line him up on the outside. He sold a vertical route, then cut it back quickly. The ball was on him. And then he has like this, and it's always talked about coming out of Missouri, power and strength to his game where he picks up hidden yards after the catch.
Yep.
Had an extra 5 and 7 on 2 receptions in this one. I really like what I see from him.
He's definitely big and fast. I think they're trying to figure out exactly where he's going to line up. Caleb put that one on the absolute freaking money. He came back on the comeback round. The ball was in his freaking chin strap already. So that was a really impressive rep for the combination of them. I think there's other reps where it has not been quite as clean, but the Olamide Zaccheaus reps could not get any worse at this point. He just drops everything. There's 3 passes that he should have caught. One of them would have been the highlight of the entire week for a touchdown there from Caleb Williams. So I would see Rome Odunze, and I would see what we got with Luther Burden. Don't know about DJ Moore's injury, but enough with the
Olamide. The DJ Moore stuff, even when healthy this season, has been incredibly rough.
I agree. And he's got a contract they can get out of next year as well. So I'm with you that even with Luther is somebody I thought needs development. I think that's been true this year. I would still get him out there right now. Like, it's the other guys aren't winning players. So I would do a bunch of 2 tight end stats. I would have Cole Kmet as a lead blocker at times, Colson Loveland as an isolated wide receiver at times. And then you get Luther and Rome Odunze and live with the growing pains because this defense is not going to win playoff games. So I think you're just kind of investing to the future. And there's been some like real signs for the offense in general. But the drops just killed me for Olamide Zaccheaus and the rest of the guys.
Yeah, there were 6 or 7 drops in totality in this game.
Brutal.
A couple others that like were those fringe drops. You know what I mean? That like
the Rome
Odunze totally outstretched and like really reaching for it. It would have to literally be by the fingertips.
Yeah.
And so it could be a better throw, but it also could be like a catch on another day. And I don't know who you give, that mistake, quote unquote, to. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Even some of the passes though that were getting caught in the fourth quarter, like Colson Loveland. Like, again, Caleb played well, but more on the body, on the break type things would be better on these downfield routes too. He still has some accuracy issues on this.
Yeah, I would say that's like the actual biggest negative to Caleb is the accuracy is not elite. He can throw on the run at a really high level. And I think he's actually processing things like fairly well. There's still some mistakes, but processing fairly well and can get out of structure to kind of bail himself out of the situation. The scrambling stuff been really good. The pinpoint accuracy has just never been there in the pros.
I think that's a great point. 2 things to make Caleb Williams like an every week, oh my God, this is an awesome performance. Pinpoint stuff on 15 plus yards down the field, 12 plus yards down the field. And then just knowing where your outlet is your best bet here versus not getting sacked, but spinning around and trying to elongate these plays versus, just a 6-yard gain here would have been pretty sweet onto the running back with no one covering you in the flat.
Yep. And then like some of the things at the goal line, the 2-minute drill, sometimes like when he's throwing the ball out, like on a quick screen, the ball just like farts out. I can't explain any of those stuff, but the rest of the stuff, I'm telling you guys, he is a above average starter already.
I'm with you.
Even with all these kind of nitpicking stuff. And I think the Bears skill group is actually now letting him down. It's not the inverse anymore.
Yep. I would argue this is his rookie season. Like last year was so bad from an offensive line standpoint and so bad from a coaching standpoint and bad from a Caleb Williams standpoint that we should kind of forget that. I know his EPA is going to be tracked with him forever and everything of the sort, but this is kind of the real start of his career. Final point on Luther Burden, because he's so fun with the football in his hands. I think that people want him to just immediately be placed in the Olamide Zaccheaus role as just the slot guy. Again, maybe I'm wrong. My belief is that he's the long-term replacement for DJ Moore as an outside and movement player for them. So I think Zaccheaus is going to stay where he is. Maybe you can put DJ Moore in that spot if you wanted to, or like you said, you just run more 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets and get Colson Loveland as that interior piece. Or even, isolated on one side and have Rome and Luther on the opposite side. But the time has come for that to happen.
Yeah, I'm workshopping this. He reminds me of like Quentin Johnston. I want to see him on these big crossing routes. And then a couple like yards after the catch underneath stuff. Like that's kind of how you develop him and get him going out there, which is a way different than how he was used at Missouri as a Wan'Dale Robinson like player. I think there's more crossing routes because he has more athleticism.
I don't think he has made, and obviously hasn't given as many opportunities, but made nearly as many mistakes as QJ did his rookie season.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's ahead of schedule there.
Okay, running back rotation here because we got DeAndre Swift back. On the box score, it looks like DeAndre Swift owned the backfield. What did it look like when you was drive by drive?
Well, it was drive by drive, except DeAndre Swift is going to get the 2-minute drill stuff. And then he won the hot hand, I would guess, because he just got more snaps in the second half. But to start the game off, it was drive by drive. DeAndre Swift makes some crazy bad pass protection mistakes. Like there was one where he basically got Caleb drilled because he wanted to leak out instead of pick up the blitzer. But on other plays, DeAndre Swift is adding yards out there. So it was another really nice game for DeAndre Swift in fantasy. I mean, he's that was 15.1 expected points despite rotating drives. The team is so like, I guess, good on offense. Like they're better in the advanced numbers than you'd expect. And right now, the last month, the Bears are second in running back usage. So there is like a huge upside for either one of these guys. So until Kyle Monangai actually takes DeAndre Swift's job, I think everyone's going to be underrating DeAndre Swift's fantasy value. Now that could just last for another couple weeks here, but if it holds the rest of the season, I think there's a chance DeAndre Swift finishes like a top 15 guy.
If we look at the rest of season schedule, you could argue that the Chicago Bears have the most difficult one for the remainder of the way. It is the Minnesota Vikings on the road, and they've turned it around, right? Pittsburgh Steelers, Philadelphia Eagles, Green Bay Packers, Cleveland Browns, Green Bay Packers, San Francisco 49ers.
Damn. Yeah. Damn. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So do you want to retract anything that you have said there?
Well, let's adjust this down. He'll be a top 20 guy. The volume's like too much, but
just tune into the running back rankings every week. How about we put it that way?
There you go.
I mean, but to your point, since week 4, just before the bye week, and as we have talked about, since the bye week, you get Benedette at left tackle. Darnell Wright has come back in at right tackle. They figured out a lot of their rushing scheme. That was a priority during the bye week. Yeah. DeAndre Swift is the running back 10 in points per game, slightly ahead of Kyron Williams, ahead of Javonte Williams, ahead of James Cook, ahead of Saquon Barkley, Quinshon Judkins, Derrick Henry. Like I can keep going, Travis Etienne, so on and so forth down the list. So yeah, I have never been a Swift guy, and hopefully the clips and the shows from a couple of weeks ago pointed out that in this system, I am a Swift guy right now.
Yep, makes enough plays.
Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. The big note, and you discussed it with Jacob Sanderson on the waiver show, is that Joe Burrow is targeting week 13 to come back. I do wonder if the Cincinnati Bengals need to win in the next 2 weeks. In week 11, that's against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In week 12, that's against the New England Patriots for that target date to stay the target. But it's also one of those rare cases that when an all-pro quarterback comes back, there is no bump in projections for any of the skill position players.
I think both things are true. With the Burrow coming back, they're not going to be mathematically eliminated by week 13. So I think he's going to play. I think that's kind of how they're looking at it. And then we'll see how healthy he is. Like I think these toe injuries are hard to pinpoint down. And Flacco, like you said, has been so good that, I mean, I can't rank Jamar Chase more as the wide receiver 1 in my rankings. He's just the wide receiver 1 in my rankings right now. In the meantime, T. Higgins, somebody wanted to flag 11.3 expected points in the 4 Flacco start. So he's like back to being a wide receiver 2.
The schedule's not kind to them either.
Man,
it's the Steelers, which, you know, they've kind of turned it around defensively a little bit.
Yeah.
Then the Patriots, then the Ravens, then the Bills, then the Ravens again over the next 5 weeks. So yeah, the point about, you know, still being in playoff contention or not eliminated, I guess, that was kind of the same thing with T. Higgins playing last year too. And like all the guys playing last year, where despite their terrible record, they were kind of quote unquote still in it until they weren't. And they kept playing until that point. Okay. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. I guess we should talk about Jerry Jeudy since he's being a total zero all season long. And I mean a total zero all season long. I went back and isolated him based on his 16.8 half PPR points this week. And it would not surprise you to know that it was still a roller coaster.
Yeah, it was. It was a total roller coaster.
It was still a massive roller coaster.
Yeah.
You still have to deal with a whole bunch of things, right? Granted, they got him in a few more stack sets now with Tommy Reese instead of, I guess, Kevin Stefanski. They gave him clean releases. He had choice routes off of him, and he was playing against like backup to backup New York Jets cornerbacks in some situations. But you're still going to have to live with the drops, the stumbles in the routes, bad quarterback play on top of it. And that's just, I think, a really fine line versus the Jets versus, like the Baltimore Ravens this week, for example.
Yeah, I did think it's interesting that the usage split comes when Cedric Tillman's back out there. When I was watching Jerry Jeudy earlier this season, more like X receiver routes, and then the routes that you were just talking about right there are like not necessarily the X receiver routes, or at least stacking them up together, more choice routes and stuff, which you don't really see from like the X spot. So maybe the Cedric Tillman puts Jerry Jeudy in a more advantageous matchup, but we'll see how long it's going to be Dylan Gabriel at this point. Offensive line is a total mess. That was going to be their easiest matchup of the year. The Jets defense has nobody right now, and Jerry Jeudy got home, but nobody else really did.
Overs, drags, options / choice routes. There's that post corner that got him a touchdown on top of it. But the Dylan Gabriel stuff is like so bad.
It's not going to happen.
So bad. Nope. Again, it doesn't matter about the conversation because they're just going to have a new quarterback next year. So Shoutout, maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. Maybe the owner forces him. Seems like Kevin Stefanski doesn't want that to happen at all. But, this is just what the offense is at this moment. I guess the more interesting part is the running game. Quinshon Judkins entered the game with a shoulder injury, and then I believe he also left the game in the fourth quarter, but I haven't seen any news on that since.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. He was really popping up on the expected points stuff. So he handled all the work up until that injury. So we'll monitor that and the running back rankings stuff. They're dead last neutral pass rate this month. So they're going to try to run the ball as much as they can to hide their tiny quarterback.
And then the whole thing with Quinshon, good player, not good environment for running back stuff, especially a guy that doesn't catch, a ton of passes out there. And they're only projected for 16.25 points here at home against the Baltimore Ravens as 8-point underdogs. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. They're up next, and they are coming out of their bye week. What do you want to see from an offense that in the 2 weeks prior to it has not looked great?
Yeah, those are some tough matchups. Dak missed a couple plays. Ferguson and the tight ends dropped a couple passes. I'm not really concerned. I don't find the offense that interesting to me. They're very good. I enjoy watching them, but it's so straightforward with what they're doing that didn't have a whole lot of notes for them. Just did want to note their defense, like with Quinn and Williams, they will be able to stop the run much, much better than they have previously. So that's more of like a matchup notes for like our running back rankings show, but maybe that trickles down to the pass game where they're not in like total epic shootouts, but their cornerback play was really bad. Like Deron Bland was getting completely cooked by Marvin Harrison. Diggs is on injured reserve. So they're not going to figure out all the issues, but at least Quinnen is back out there.
I'm sure you looked this up, but I'll ask you anyways. Their defense has been horrific this season.
Oh, yeah.
Right? How many points do you think Vegas and the books project the Raiders at home to score against this Cowboys defense?
It's like 19, 20?
No. 24.
24. Wow. 24.
So the Quinn Williams edition hasn't moved the needle that much in terms of a projectable defense here for the Cowboys, dude, according to the books here, Hayden.
Yeah. And we talk about the Quinn and stuff. They have no chance of making the playoffs, so this is only just for show. Like, this is just so Jerry Jones can like say, hey, I stopped Ashton Genty. Wasn't he supposed to be really good?
Again, it does make a somewhat of a difference of not getting totally blown out by allowing 35, 40 points where like Joe Milton gets in for the final series.
Yeah.
That has happened this year, and he threw a touchdown pass. So at least this defense should allow Dak Prescott to play in all four quarters unless they're totally up on the opposite end of the scoreboard.
Yeah, which the defense isn't going to get that good where they're totally up either. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. They're up next. And a big boost here, and maybe stems from a change. By now, I'm sure you know that Dan Campbell took the play calling duties ahead of Johnny Morton. Dan Campbell immediately gets Jamison Williams involved. I freaking loved this usage, and it's everything that we've been wanting and dreaming of all season long. Very Ben Johnson-esque here. I mean, early on, it was vertical routes that he sold along the sideline, and then he had an ability to throttle down and create instant separation and turn on a dime. Then it was intermediate in breakers on daggers and digs, and with that against zone coverage, there's always a chance that Jamison Williams can be at full speed and run after the catch and break one tackle like he did for the touchdown. And then I think most importantly, it was that one singular underneath drag yak opportunity where everyone is running for the love of the game, pushing coverage away, play action to the right, Jameson Williams opposite against the grain, catch it, and then runs for like 30 yards. I think all those catches, like Amon-Ra St. Brown was barely on the field, which is also notable for that. But we love some level of consistency here for what has been an inconsistent fantasy season for Jameis.
Entering that game, they were second in scoring. So if they were changing the offense, it was like the only guy that wasn't really involved at all was Jamo. So you would have to think that Dan Campbell grabbed the sticks so he can get Jamo involved. Like, I don't understand why there would be another reason to do that. I mean, the offense was largely cooking. So it makes sense that Jamo got that little shallow crosser. That's what he was really good at the year before, the yards after the catch stuff. So that was exciting to see. He's 10.5 expected half PPR points. I will rank him as a top 25 guy, top 30 guy for probably a lot of the rest of the season. But it's going to be still. So hopefully we can like continue this usage, but it was nice to see.
Once again, I'm negative Norris here. Might not be this week. We are kind of back to, remember week 1 when they were only projected for 22.5 points?
Yeah.
They're only projected for 22 points this week on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles in Sunday Night Football.
Yep. So he'll be a wide receiver 4. Then the next week he'll be the wide receiver 25 to wide receiver 30.
Yeah. I mean, again, obviously the Eagles defense and the Packers defenses are different, but think about what happened in week 1, albeit Dan Campbell wasn't calling plays at that point. And typically we're getting the Lions projected on any given week for these ranking shows with 26, 27, 28, 29 points. 22 is a big departure from that.
It'd be smart if Dan Campbell gave the play calling back to the OC this week and then takes it
what
back.
What a call to do that against the Washington Commanders, you know?
Yeah, smart man.
Anything else you want to add about the team, or should we move on?
With Campbell calling plays, it was rotated drives, Gibbs, Montgomery, all the way through.
Interesting.
So, you know, like that's just the opportunity that he wanted to go with, like establish a hot hand, get some level of consistency for each guy instead of like rotating by tendencies. So that's just something where that only happens for Gibbs among the stud running backs. Like Bijan doesn't get the goal line stuff. Gibbs rotates drives with everybody else. All the other top 6, 7 running backs is just them. So that's the hard part with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Indianapolis Colts, they are headed into their bye week, which is a real test for the fantasy players out there that had Jonathan Taylor as the core of their lineup every single week. You know, just a cool bankable 20 points on any given time. This is from Pat Thorman, who does great work. Daniel Jones, when pressured this season from weeks 1 through 8, 0 turnover worthy play percent and a 9.8 pressure to sack rate, which is third best across the league. Weeks 9 and 10 over the last 2 games, 16.1 turnover worthy play rate. That is a second worst mark in the NFL, and a 40% pressure to sack rate, which is the worst of 30 quarterbacks. I am not jumping off of Colts offense island here, and I am still a believer in what this team can be. But I think we can also say that he was definitely running pure in a lot of the opening stanza of the season. He wasn't pressured that often, and when he was throwing in the face of it and making some unreal passes. And then we can also maybe look at these last 2 games and say, hey, that's a pretty rough 2-game sample. And we'll see if that becomes a 4-game sample and a 6-game sample moving forward.
Yeah, I thought his interception was not like him under duress. He just, Alec Pierce and himself weren't on the same page. There's some other plays where the strip sacks, obviously, that's a concern because the offensive line was so dominant. But I thought 2 weeks ago against the Steelers, those were just quick pressures and kind of madness. It's a bad 2-game stretch. And at the same time, they still average 7 yards per play, which would be easily the most in the NFL. So do I have worries? Like, yeah, this team was like not the best team I've ever seen, but could they still win the Super Bowl?
But no team this year is the best you've ever seen.
Exactly. That's like, if we played, this team can't win the Super Bowl because of how they played in X week, then we would have eliminated every single team in the NFL already, like multiple times. So
now it does frustrate me that DeForest Buckner's out for the year.
That's big.
That's a big thing in terms of their run defense and just overall winning one-on-one with an individual player. But I would still bank them in the contender category. Still moving.
Oh yeah.
Glad everyone watched and played Alec Pierce. I think that was more messages I've gotten this season on any one player than before. So we will continue to look into the splits of Tyler Warren and Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce in future matchups. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, this month, Pierce is wide receiver 17 in usage. Michael Pittman's wide receiver 26. And there's some looks where Pierce is the only wide receiver on the football field.
Let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Unfortunate news before we got started here that Travis Hunter will miss the remainder of the season, undergoing knee surgery, I believe on his LCL. This is just like after a week, and I can't remember who reported it, but someone did that, like, he's not expected to be shelved for that long. He will miss the next 3 games because of short-term IR and all that stuff. This freaking sucks, you know? The dude was an Iron Man, playing a ton of snaps on both wide receiver and cornerback back in college for 3 seasons. And then this injury doesn't even happen in a game. It happens in practice as he's on the defensive side of the ball. So the frustrating element is, 1, really talented. 2, we are just going to have to buy into coach speak this offseason of what his offense/defense role is going to be, because we were expecting to see what it could be for the rest of the year and heading into his second season after the bye. And obviously that never is going to happen.
Yeah, I think I didn't learn that much from his rookie season. I knew that he was an incredible athlete on both sides of the ball, and there were flashes of both of that, either at the catch point on either side of the ball. And then I don't know where he's going to play, which I didn't know going into this. So we're back to where we were. Super frustrating injury, LCL injury, just kind of a rare knee injury out of all the ligaments in that dang knee. You don't hear about the old LCL very often. And also just the timing of the news comes after Jacksonville loses this last week. So now that they're under 50% odds to make the playoffs, I wonder if that has anything to do with it as well. So they're now at 30% chance of making the playoffs right now. And if they lose this next week, that drops down to 22%. So pressure's on Jacksonville. And I watched that Trevor Lawrence performance last week, and Parker Washington bailed him out. And then I thought the offensive line looked pretty weak. And then nothing really out of Jacoby Myers, and no Brendan Strange still. So I think it's kind of bleak right now for Jacksonville.
I'm not saying that Trevor played great. I actually thought it was a decent throw to Parker Washington in the back of the end zone. Like, he kind of,
no, it was a great throw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just aside from the Parker Washington, good. The rest of the game I thought was pretty lackluster. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. And to that point, like, they don't even have 5 wins without Travis Hunter. I mean, he made a crucial catch from their own end zone for 23 yards on 3rd and 12 against the San Francisco 49ers. He made another downfield crucial catch in double coverage while contacted against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
You know, now they're maybe getting Brendan Strange back somewhat soon. He's starting his practice window here. They've lost basically every game since Brendan Strange hasn't been on a field.
Yep.
And while people might laugh, I think there's some connection there. You know, they're playing Quentin Morris this week and other dudes, which, by the way, they were lining Quentin Morris one-on-one up against Will Anderson and Donnell Hunter, and that was just allowing sacks and strip sacks and whatever in the backfield. So, like, Brendan Strange is a key part of this offense at this moment.
Yeah, and I just don't think that Trevor sees the field all that well still. So, like, he needs his primary to be ready to go. And I think Brendan Strange was actually the primary in a lot of the plays before the injured reserves stint. So that'd be a big deal. Also, did want to mention Jacoby Myers, only 3.3 expected points. His biggest play of the game was a coverage bust where he was standing by himself out there. This is why I was frustrated about the trade, because now they're dogs to make the playoffs, and they just trade future draft picks for an expiring contract. And we don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs. Like, it's one thing for the Seahawks to do it when we know they're going to be in the dance. Now they might just get Jacoby Myers, who, by the way, I think Parker Washington's better than Jacoby Myers at this point. I think Parker Washington makes a lot of plays. He snapped Derek Stingley one-on-one. That was just cover one, just snapped him. So
obviously Jacksonville does not have their 2026 first round selection when it comes to this trade. Tim Patrick played the second most wide receiver snaps on the team. I'm not saying that that's going to sustain itself, but Jacoby Myers was just at 43%. We heard from Liam Cohen that all he could do was learn one spot that should grow as they go along. Yeah. And he's, working with his former wide receiver coach. So I'm expecting Jacoby Myers to overtake Tim Patrick, who again played the second most wide receiver snaps and didn't have a single target in this game.
But once Strange is back and Brian Thomas is back, and I think Parker Washington is an equal talent to Jacoby, then what are we doing this for? Like, the team's going to be projected for 20 points to 24 points, depending on the matchup. So, and they've been pretty run heavy recently as well. So Travis Etienne actually this month is RB2 in usage. He's getting a lot of the goal line work and a bunch of receptions on top of it. But this last week for Jacksonville, 36% neutral pass rate, which is like below the Lions and the Ravens and the Browns and the Jets. Like that's really outlier stuff with what they're working with Jacksonville.
They do have some nice matchups coming up. Like they face the Arizona Cardinals in week 12. They face the Tennessee Titans in week 13. They face the Jets in week 15. So it's kind of going to be hit and miss, I think, and maybe matchup based with some of these rankings moving forward. Anything else you want to say about them, or should we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think ETN could be like DeAndre Swift, where he's just going to pop up there and be a really nice upside RB2.
Okay, let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. Jack Besh played on just 14 snaps last Thursday as wide receiver 4. Brock Bowers was at 83% snaps, which is massive, but just had 1 catch for 31 yards. It's just a total mess for this team.
It's a total mess. I don't even know what they do from here because they play Trey Tucker and he's going to keep playing. Brock Bowers is a slot wide receiver and Michael Mayer's their inline guy. All that's staying. And then Tyler Lockett's playing up against Besh and Thornton. And Lockett's just way better than those guys. So like I get it for the sake of like developing these guys, but the 2 rookies that they have at wide receiver can't catch the football and get open. So, and they're not in the right spots. Like, so Geno Smith is oftentimes like staring at these guys and then has to turn down throws as well. And then when he does throw the ball to them, they're dropping it. So it's a total mess. They just put a guard, Jackson Powers Johnson, on injured reserve. I thought Jackson Powers Johnson was having a really bad season, so that doesn't even like really swing things, but
right.
They're the worst run blocking team in the NFL right now. They have the lowest EPA rushing the ball by a mile. So I don't know what we do with the Raiders.
Well, again, what we do is see them play on Monday Night Football and see them projected for 24 points at home. That's what we see.
What am I supposed to do with Brock Bowers in rankings? Like,
well, it's against
go crazy, right? Like he's gonna go crazy.
I mean, let's also not act that it's totally out of like, left field for tight ends to have a bit up and down stuff here.
For sure.
Now, again, hopefully on any given week, Trey McBride, Tyler Warren, George Kittle, and Brock Bowers have a floor of 5 targets.
Yeah.
And 4 catches at the very least. They can go nuclear like we saw 2 weeks ago with Brock Bowers. Just a 1 catch for 31-yard performance when you have nothing else should never happen. Should never happen.
I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get it.
LA Rams, very good team. Our favorite at this moment in the NFL. If not already, that should, I believe, be a common occurrence moving forward. And maybe the game of the season this weekend. 4:05 Eastern, Sunday afternoon, LA at home, Seattle Seahawks. Can't wait for that one. Anything you want to talk about here about the Rams, who continue to use 13 personnel on about 30% of snaps, which, by the way, you would think that they would run similar plays, the same plays. Nope, it was completely different looks and sets out of them this week.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the tight end bowl. I can't wait. The Seahawks and the Rams are creating explosives out of heavy personnel better than anybody in the league, and there's reasons for that. I posted a clip from Greg Olson, who's on Bussin' with the Boys, and he just outlined it perfectly that the Rams, when they get into 3 wide receiver sets, they have wide receivers that can block, so they get into smaller looks on defense, and they can block you up, and then they bring in all these tight ends, and the key to the tight end usage stuff is your guy, Terrence Ferguson, who operates pretty much like a wide receiver, and like they're like, okay, your third tight end or your third linebacker or the third safety or whoever you're going to be bringing in there, mostly the linebacker, he's not as fast as Terrence Ferguson is. So like our tight end 3 is faster than your linebacker 3. Well, guess what? They're in a foot race down the field. So the Seahawks and the Rams, when they're in multiple tight end sets this year, their ADOTs are like 12 yards, 11 yards down the field. So you think like, oh, just little checks and releases and little leak routes. Like it's nope. We're sprinting down the field with our big guys. That's Arroyo and Barner for the Seahawks. That's all the tight ends, but really in particular, it's Terrence Ferguson who can like really stride it out.
He nearly had an awesome sideline catch on top of it.
Yeah.
He had another one where he did route someone on an outside breaker too. Yeah, I mean, out of 13 personnel on the 30 of 68 plays in it this week, 5 of the 6 longest gains were passing plays, chunks of 32, 23, 16, 13, and 12 yards. Yeah, I mean, they utilize pre-snap motion and then different alignments from each one, and then they can condense it down or spread it out, and then basically turns it into levels concepts on top of everything. So it's Yeah. McVay, shockingly, ahead of the curve once again of, 11, spread you out. This is the personnel that I trust. Nope. Now I have wide receivers that I like. I also have all these tight ends, and then I can force you into whatever look defensively that I want you to get in. And we have a quarterback that can throw to every blade of grass out there.
Curious your thoughts on this. Greg Olsen, if he was a defensive coordinator against this, he would just look at your tendencies based off the down and distance and not care about the personnel that you're trotting out there anymore. Like, that's what he's saying, that for NFL history, it's been, you're bringing these tight ends, I'm bringing in my linebackers. He is now saying, throw that out there. What do you do on 1st and 10s? Are you passing the ball or running the ball? And he would rather match it based off of that.
Greg Olsen knows way more ball than I would and do. This is how I would counteract that. Maybe a drive, it gets stalled out something, but then next set of downs out of 13 or whatever, 2 plays, run, pass out of it. If you're on lighter bodies against our 13 personnel, okay, we check into a run. If not, then so it's just 2 plays every single time, and everyone just knows what goes on from there.
Yeah.
So while on 1st down previously, I forced you in the set, and that meant throw in that regard. Now I have another play that we didn't use the last time because we didn't need to. But now if you're in that look, then that immediately punts us into the opposite direction. And
my last thing with all this is how cyclical all of this is. Like, we were talking about where the light tight ends that run fast have no value because they can't run block. Well, now Dalton Kincaid's springing up big plays because he's the fast tight end in these jumbo looks. That's what Arroyo's doing. And that's what Ferguson's doing. And Harold Fanall mentioned the same thing. These aren't the best run blocking tight ends. Are they the most important tight end in their group now? Yes, because of the styled plays that they're bringing out there. So it's like, now all of a sudden the guy that I used to think didn't have value in the NFL because he can't run block, now it doesn't matter because he's only out there now so they can get a matchup advantage against a slow-footed linebacker. So it's just crazy how this thing kind of goes back and forth. And the Seahawks and the Rams are at the top of the league with that. So that game's going to be awesome.
I love the big boy era of the cycle that we are in now. That's for sure. By the way, remember a couple drafts ago where the Rams wanted to move up ahead of the Raiders and get Brock Bowers? Imagine if what would have happened with that.
Oh, man.
I mean, they probably wouldn't have, gotten Devontae Adams if that was the case. Maybe they would have. But it would have just been double Puka Nakua's out there.
Speaking of Puka, I don't want to get ahead of this. He is the wide receiver that's coming off the field for all these heavy tight end looks. Just throwing that out there. Like, if maybe the expectations shouldn't be 98 yards for Puka. Maybe it should be like 80 flat, which is so awesome. But he is not running as many routes, and it was a season loan usage for him this last week. And it's Devontae Adams if there's only one wide receiver on the field.
Okay, I forgot the Kansas City Chiefs, but that perfectly leads me into my segue of saying that Rashee Rice is actually the wide receiver 1 ever since he has returned to the field. If we just look at overall, I believe he is averaging 19.1 fantasy points per contest right now. They are coming out of their bye week. What do you want to see from them?
Well, we got an update that Josh Simmons is going to be at least active for the game. We'll see if he starts. And then Isaiah Pacheco, he's probably another week away. So it's going to be the Kareem Hunt show with a little bit of Brashard Smith as the running back spots. I think that's like the most entertaining part of it. And then it just keep adding to the sample size of how much further are we going to drop Xavier Worthy in rankings? How high could we push Rashee Rice up there? And then could Travis Kelce kind of hold the line? But in general, I think the Chiefs offense is looking pretty sharp. And I think Kareem Hunt is a must play.
All right, let's go to the Miami Dolphins. Discussed the run game earlier against the Buffalo Bills. Just totally wrecked them from tackle to tackle. Both long Devon Achane runs too were in the fourth quarter. The 59-yarder and the 35-yarder. Again, one of those was to the outside, but he breaks so many tackles against the Bills. Man. It was nuts. All these when he's facing up against a linebacker or a safety trying to close the lanes, just like that final quick movement forces them to attack his frame or dive. And then he's just breaking an ankle tackle and then he's off to the races. So Achane remains one of the more underrated runners in the NFL and not just an athlete on the field.
Yeah, his contact balance is wild. So Without the Cleveland weather game, he's up at 18.7 expected fantasy points since the Tyreek Hill injury. I mean, that's as good as it gets. And he's been a model breaker on top of that. So he might be my RB2 this next week because Jonathan Taylor's on bye. I'm struggling to see who's got a better overall role. I think the Dolphins are showing a lot of fight. Their offensive scheme, I think, is still really good given the lack of depth they have with it. And then Jalen Waddle's just running routes by himself too. So that's at 15.8 fantasy points per game in the 5 games without Tyreek Hill, without that Cleveland game. So that's wide receiver 1 numbers as well.
Yeah, it's NWI and Greg Dulcich as like the 2 other guys running a bunch of routes on the team. The Dolphins get the Washington Commanders defense here in
talk about 11. Speed versus whatever we're calling Washington.
Now it's in Madrid, so hopefully that speed can, cross an ocean and keep up with it. But they're projected for 25 points in this game. I don't know if Dan Quinn taking over the Washington Commanders defense will make the linebackers faster, but if not, good luck getting to the edge over and over and over again with Frankie Louva and Bobby Wagner versus Devon Achane. Good luck.
Yeah, and backup corners too. So yeah, Achane and Waddle, that's
Minnesota Vikings time. I know you watched the JJ McCarthy stuff live, I believe. I went back and rewatched it. Just exactly what you said, where an early big time throw down the field, another one versus the face of pressure, then that made up about 40% of his overall numbers on the entire day. Again, I do want to keep in mind that this is his rookie season. We are 4 games into it. And to me, the main part is he just has to fix the inaccuracy, and his inaccuracy, forces receivers to adjust, or it's way off their frame, or it's totally sailing the pass over their head. Like you said, I'm not sure if it's totally amped up stuff, but they do get the Bears, the Commanders, and the Cowboys defenses coming up.
Good.
So this is a nice stretch for JJ McCarthy to kind of, I think, settle into moving forward, especially with, I've seen way too many Vikings fans like calling for KOC's job and calling plays at this moment. It's nuts to me.
Yeah, that is nuts. I think JJ needs to calm down. He plays way too fast, like getting through his progressions, and he just kind of an erratic decision maker. Not even like the second interception, that was one-on-one. There was not even a safety back there, so not even counting that. Just the rest of the outing, just jumping around, going from the outside back to the inside, spraying passes, because I think that he throws the ball on a line drive, and he's got like a lot of like arm talent in terms of just like how much he can zip the ball around. But he doesn't have a whole lot of control, and I think he's playing pretty erratically. And if it continues and they had somebody else, I think there was a chance that they would move on to somebody else. I think he's been playing that bad. I'm not writing him off his first career, just describing what the first 4 games looked like. I would say that he's probably the worst starting quarterback going into this next week, without having the full list. And I think he will play better because he's got some talent. It's not like the Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield kind of talent where like you're going through the rookie struggles, but he's got some level of talent. But he's just missing guys by a mile right now.
And I should have been more clear. Those 3 to 4 games are not in a row. He gets Chicago this week, and then it's 2 rough ones against the Packers and the Seahawks defenses, both on the road. And then it's Washington and Dallas and the Giants after that. There's an interesting tweet that just popped up on my feed from Phil Mackey. I did not double check this. I'm just taking him at his word. Okay. JJ McCarthy has faced 22 plays of 3rd and 4th and short this season. So 3 yards or less. 6 of those have been called runs. 5 of 6 have converted for first downs. There have been 14 called passes on that. 0 completions.
They throw the ball
0
downfield
completions.
a lot. Yeah. It's weird.
0 for 10, 4 sacks taken, 2 interceptions. I mean, I discuss it very often. At Michigan, his best stuff was 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7 plus situations. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's just shot play stuff, and it's Kevin O'Connell thinking, in this over the last 2 years with Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold, that was beautiful long touchdowns, defense not expecting it. And that is just not working right now with JJ.
If I was going to nitpick anything with KOC is he doesn't have a lot of like underneath routes to kind of bail quarterbacks out. And I thought a lot of the Sam Darnold metrics down the stretch there, you can point to like, hey, where was Sam Darnold even supposed to throw the check down to? Everything's working downfield. Now, on average, it's a good way to build an offense, but you could be left kind of by yourself out there as a quarterback. Now, I think this is way more of a J.J. McCarthy problem than a Kevin O'Connell problem. Like, not even close.
Any thoughts on Justin Jefferson?
He's mad. I mean, I posted the compilation of all the misses. He's just like not trying to chase down the guy that intercepted the ball. I mean, the ball's like not even near him for a lot of it. And like the fourth down, the last play of the game, there was a corner, a zone corner, who's on the outside leverage of Justin Jefferson, and J.J. McCarthy tries to throw it there where it was more likely to get intercepted than get completed to Justin Jefferson. So that's just like not understanding like where to go with the football. So I think this will be the worst stretch for Justin Jefferson's career. Will be from this point moving forward, and there's already some splits there. I don't expect it to get a whole lot better down the stretch.
Again, I could see us when we get to wide receiver ranking shows and some of the teams that I brought up, him ranking very high, and then some of the teams that we're facing not high at all. It's also going to be an interesting one, like you said, if it like right now he's wide receiver 17 in points per game for the entire year. Let's say he finishes as wide receiver 15 this season. What is the conversation heading into 2026 drafts where he has relentlessly been a first round pick since his rookie season? And that's that. Is he going to fall to round 2? Is he going to fall to round 3 on some leagues out there?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's possible. I don't think that's a given that he's going to be a top 17 wide receiver the rest of the way. Like, I think that's just the status of this offense. They're also trying to be more balanced. Like, it's not the same level offense as it was before. But yeah, I think before we get to next year, we got to see like how if J.J. McCarthy's like even going to be the quarterback next year. Like, he has to play better than this.
That's the whole season.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll learn as we break this thing down.
New Orleans Saints. We know they traded Rashid Shaheed. So who filled in at wide receiver? Yes, it's that man, Devon Vele. He did play 91% of snaps, 100% of dropbacks. I don't think he had a catch all game.
No,
he had one.
Nope, nothing.
Yep. But crucial. And I talked about this on Sunday night. Crucial third down situations. Tyler Shuck was nails. What'd you see?
I couldn't believe it. Like,
yeah, man.
I remember the third down stuff that you were talking about on the show, but when I was like watching all the plays, I was like, all right, what down? Oh, that was 3rd and 6. Another fourth down, third and down. I was like, what the hell is it? I mean, he had like 8 plays that were just explosives on third downs and fourth downs. It was crazy. I think there's a chance Shuck could be like, we have to figure out the decision making. You can't grade that in 2 weeks, but I think does he have NFL traits? I do think he does. He's like, I think my upside comp with him was like Ryan Tannehill. I don't think he's quite as good of an athlete, but he can spin the ball down the field, and we saw that repeatedly here. And this is one worth tracking to me. Like, after that game, it's like suddenly pretty interesting because the context was he was missing 3 of his starting offensive linemen and Rashid Shaheed. They're
going to the bye. My only counter with that is if J.C. Horn doesn't fall down twice on some of those, then the 2 biggest gains of the day are not there.
But that Olave one down the sideline, that was a seed. Like, I know.
No, it was. But I mean, he was also like perfectly in phase, and who knows if it was going to be a catch and any of that stuff.
For sure.
To me, that could easily have been a nice pass that gives his cornerback a chance, but it goes incomplete.
But just like comparing him to the last quarterback we talked about with J.J. McCarthy, Shuck seems way more calm and poised, and his arm talent is evident immediately. Now, there's the decision making is the biggest part of quarterback play, and it's too early to tell there, but just the traits and how ready are you right now, it's like night and day watching Shuck versus JJ McCarthy, for example. So we'll see.
And he does have games where it's a possibility to have a good outing, bye week, then Atlanta, which has been, up and down, mixed results this season. Miami, definitely mixed results this season. Tampa Bay, Carolina, just diced them up. Then the Jets, and then he closed with the Tennessee Titans. That is one of the more favorable schedules a 26-year-old 40th overall pick could have to close out the season.
Yep. Juwan Johnson had a huge day in the box score. Those are like kind of scramble drill plays. I wouldn't go chasing the Juwan. I think tied in 2 streamer, sure, but a lot of that was just like Tyler Shuck just weaving in and out of traffic and launching the ball downfield.
Right. And Taysom Hill did play 20 snaps though.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara though, he was used a lot, and he had that one play kind of out of structure underneath and runs upfield for a little bit. So like maybe there's a chance Alvin Kamara could be, not what I have him like running back 38. Maybe he's more running back 28.
And by the way, Olave was freaking awesome. One-handed catch, sideline stuff. Oh. He's an awesome player. So I don't want to get ahead of my skis here on the Saints because they have been.
Yeah, it's been rough.
But I think Olave is a real deal. Real deal.
Yeah.
Okay. New York Jets. Garrett Wilson out 3 to 4 weeks. That's not fun. Other thing that's not fun, quarterback play. And who knows who's starting moving forward, even after the owner's comments from a few weeks ago seem so long ago.
Yeah.
Anyways, from Glenn Naughton. All right. Number of times a Jets quarterback failed to net 50 passing yards in a game and the number of starts they had in that time. All right. Mark Sanchez failed to hit 50 net passing yards just one time in 62 starts. Geno Smith, 3 of 30. Okay. Sam Darnold, 1 in 38. Zach Wilson, 2 in 33. Justin Fields has done it 4 times in 8 starts as a Jets quarterback.
Dude, it is insane. It's got to be Tyrod. I think the rest of the way, but
they've won the last 2.
I know. I mean, it's been egregious. It's been egregious. I mean, they're lucky that Breece Hall is as fast as he is, or otherwise it'd be. But I mean, doesn't matter the quarterback. You're trotting out nobodies at wide receiver. It's a complete mess out there. I hate that Aaron Glenn once again. Do you see him at the podium today calling out? He didn't want to give injury updates because Rich Cimini broke that Garrett Wilson is going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks. He went up the podium and was like, just go ask Rich. I'm not going to tell you. Just go ask Rich. And Rich wasn't even there, by the way. And then another reporter's like, could you just tell us? And he's like, no, just go talk to Rich.
Be normal, dude.
Get out of here, man. Get out of here.
Again, at least they're winning now, so you can be a little bit of a jerk, but you can't lose and suck and be a jerk.
Yeah, they're asking about Garrett Wilson, just like, how hurt is he? F off. It's like, all right, cool.
All right. Anything else we want to add here about the Jets? I mean, is it Adai Mitchell wide receiver 1 season after being inactive so far?
Yeah. I mean, that's probably actually what's going to happen.
All right. San Francisco 49ers, bruised, battered all season long. It kind of sounds like Ricky Pearsall is returning to practice this week. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
If that means he's going to play, if he needs another week of practice, on and on and on again. Juwan Jennings, though, despite a couple rocky moments in the game, totally hit for us in fantasy football. So nice call by you.
Yeah. I mean, kind of. He's getting all the looks out of necessity. You know, they're like really forcing him the football, and it's been pretty hit and miss. But that's 4 straight games where he's at least 9.3 expected points, and he had that cheat motion touchdown that I talked about. But the rest of the game, it's like, you know, Mac was like taking the easy answer and was like very accurate with it, but there were some plays maybe that were left on the field a little bit. Still playing as good a football as you can possibly ask for your quarterback in a new system there, so don't want to hit on him too hard. I don't know about Brock Purdy if he's going to come back. Same thing with Ricky Pearsall. It seems like we're a couple weeks away from Brandon Ayuk still. So in the meantime, it's going to be George Kittle hopefully playing like he did this last week, and then Juwan Jennings I do think is a top 30 fantasy wide receiver unless Pearsall comes back. But that Pearsall injury, man, like it's just one of those where it's just like, and the season's just kind of lost. Even when he comes back, I'm guessing he's just not going to be the same player after missing for as long as he has.
They are projected for nearly 26 points this week, though, on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. So get those rankings ready.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Juwan's going to be ranked high.
CMC did have a bit more rest this week than he has previously. He played only 79% of snaps. Mm-hmm. That means B-Rob got in for 21% and made the most of them. I mean, on those 13 overall snaps, he got 8 carries for a touchdown and a reception. So again, of his 13 snaps, he touched the ball 9 times.
Yeah, they gave him like a drive, and he looked really explosive. So maybe he was just injured and was used too much, and now that he's neither of those, he was much faster than CMC.
Let's talk the Seattle Seahawks. My only note is I expect Rashid Shaheed to play more moving forward, but in this game he did sprinkle in 2 wide receiver sets, but you know Cooper Kupp played more in the first half and more in the second half. His speed is very evident, and I was definitely scared that when I saw a 22 that there was a third running back that Clint Kubiak was playing ahead of both Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet.
Well, Charbonnet and Holani look so identical. It's pretty much like the same skin complexion, and then also end with 6 on their jerseys.
The broadcast confused them at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and so do I. So it's like on all 22. If I'm watching the side cam, you can't really tell until the play is over. But yeah, super frustrating committee. Like that was happening earlier on. So this month, for example, Kenneth Walker is running back 27 in usage. Charbonnet is running back 31. Like, flip coins, especially this week. You get the Rams. It's I'm not going to be ranking those guys too aggressively. Now, JSN against zone coverage goes absolutely crazy, and that's what the Rams do. And I think you trade for Rashid Shaheed for a game like this. Like, this game has huge division impacts, seeding impacts, because the team that wins this game is looking pretty solid to have the bye, which is obviously super valuable. So this is as big of it gets.
Yeah, we'll see if the Seahawks change their personnel groupings that they've done so far this season. Obviously, they run 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets, by far and away the lowest rate in the league at just 36% of the time. That has obviously worked out for them so far this year. You know, it's exactly what we talk about on a weekly basis. They are passing out of run looks, and especially under center, and marrying the running game to the passing game. And it's somewhat why their rushing success hasn't been as good, and their passing success has been much better. So that's why I just, again, in his first game, wanted to harp on the 2 wide receiver set stuff with Rashid Shaheed. But like you said, again, he sprinkled in, and then I would simply expect him to play more moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
Even if they, you know, that takes some away from the blocking element of Cooper Kupp and everything like that. At some point, they will sacrifice that if they're in neutral game script or negative game script, because Shaheed on either part of the dagger concept, either the vertical route or the crossing route, separates quite easily.
Yeah, they're going to get him involved. So I think it's going to be hard to pick in fantasies. I think he's going to turn into a better and best ball player down the stretch.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, the box score made me think that, oh, is this backfield closer than what we thought it was? And then you look at the snaps, and it was still a lot of Rachaad White.
Yeah.
So I guess Sean Tucker pulled the Brian Robinson that when he was in the game, he got the football. But anything else you want to add here about the Tampa Bay Bucks?
Yeah, Sean Tucker got like a stint in the first quarter for a drive there, but for the most part, it was a lot of Rachaad White. So Sean Tucker's like mixing in a little bit, but it's still mostly Rachaad White here. Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin got another update, just like no timetable. Stop asking. So, and I did look at it.
And it's the shoulder, not the ankle with Bucky.
Yep. I think the quote was, he's got to be able to take a hit, which is kind of telling me that he dislocated his shoulder. And then they had so many guys on injured reserve. You can only activate so many guys off of injured reserve. So they've just been allowing him to kind of sit there in kind of no man's land. So who knows? I think it's going to be Rachaad White once again here for the next month or so. We'll see. And then he's been in the last 2 games, 13.2 and 9.2 expected points as like an RB24, somewhere kind of in that range. And then Emeka is just going to go absolutely crazy, you know.
Cade Otton too. I mean, Cade Otton's getting targeted a lot. Okay, Tennessee Titans. They're coming out of the bye week. What do you want to see the Titans the rest of the way?
Am I going to be watching them? Let's start there.
I want to see the Titans offensive line play better. Yeah. They should, based on, you know, the contract that's given to Dan Moore, Skoronski, and the right tackle, and JC Latham, and the center that they've paid, you know, and the veteran right guard that they have. Like, they should be playing better. And then on top of it, Cam Ward, are these Will Levis-like turnovers going to last from week 1 through week 18? Or can you not have one per game at this moment?
Yeah. Yep. I think it's all, and then who's he throwing to would be another good one. Like, is Calvin Ridley, like, is he going to come back at any point? Maybe here, I don't know. Chimere DK has been much better than Alec Ayumanor. I think Ayumanor has been making a ton of rookie mistakes at the catch point. I don't think that he has crazy good traits. Yeah, it's a terrible situation for Cam Ward, and he's got to start eliminating some of the like really, really bad stuff and play within structure a little bit more. Or if you are going to get out of structure, go run. Like, he's
just not scrambling.
He never scrambles and takes sacks. And I think it was one of the Schwartzes on Twitter posted, or maybe it was Sam Schwartzman or whatever, the guy from.
So okay.
It's it's the same group.
So
and there's
you have
all
combined.
Schwartzes.
You have combined Mitchell Schwartz and Jeff Schwartz together, and now you have added
the other
on
guy,
Sham Schwartzstein from the Amazon Prime broadcast into the family here.
Yeah, well, they all talk to each other. Actually, one of the last times Sam Schwartzstein has talked was a quote tweet on Mitchell Schwartz. Anyways, They had a metric. One of these fucking guys had a metric: sacks minus scrambles, the EPA. And Cam Ward was by himself. He doesn't scramble and he takes 1 million sacks. So I haven't found the tweet, but it does exist, I think.
They were all offensive linemen. Do you know
Yes.
Sam Schwartzine was Andrew Luck's center?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. I'll find the tweet.
All right. And I still want Tajay Spears to make people miss. One of these days, I will come up with a compilation of all of the missed forced tackles he has forced this season. It's pretty fun. There it is. All right. He calls that scrack. We're just making stuff up.
Oh, yeah. It's a good stat.
By the way, Tennessee Titans, they're facing the Houston Texans this week out of the bye. How many points do you think the Titans are projected for?
Oh, I mean, I would make it 16.25.
It is 16.25, you cheater.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to the Washington Commanders to close this thing out. As I previously mentioned, Dan Quinn taking over defensive play calls. Highly doubt that makes anyone faster, anyone better on that side of the ball. It's just rough. All the veterans that they brought in prior to last season and Jaden Daniels' rookie year, it worked. All the veterans that they brought in heading into this year has not worked, other than Debo.
Yeah.
Debo's been good. But then the ones from last year got injured or got slower, a year older, all of that. So, yeah, I think the Commanders are the perfect example this year of, hey, progression is just not linear. Like, things go up and down in the NFL, and injury luck is a big part of it.
Yeah, injury luck it really explains a lot of that. For fantasy, it's literally just Debo and then Marcus Mariota. I think Mariota is kind of like a sneaky quarterback 13, somewhere in that range. He's kind of been living in that area. But yeah, Bill was the third running back to touch the ball this last game. And Chris Rodriguez got the first crack at a goal line carry in the first half. So it's just Debo, and Debo with Marcus Mariota is averaging 9.3 expected points, which is like wide receiver 35. So that's it.
Yeah, and even Ertz isn't that high too.
Yeah.
So it was one of the most explosive offenses to watch last year, where, some bounce of the ball and some explosive plays, some high variance stuff really went in their direction, and then just none of it is this year. So,
yep.
Football's a cruel sport.
It is.
Cruel sport. That does it for us. Another week in the books as we go through week 11 in the rankings segments coming up on Wednesday, and then on Friday, and then on Saturday with our rest of season show with Faraz. Only 2 episodes left of that one, Thursday of this week. So appreciate everyone tuning in. As always, go play an underdog. Prediction markets in over 20 states right now. Go and play on the Dog app. Promo code the show. If you play $5 your first time, I'll throw $100 in bonus cash in your direction. Up the villa, everyone. We'll talk to y'all soon. See you.